Hello and welcome to your favorite Stat Check host's favorite Stat Check podcast. It's time for episode 22 of Take All Comers. Don't call it a comeback. We are here in the brand new year of 2025. I believe this is the first Stat Check Network recording of the new year, and we are bringing you some hot and fresh Warhammer content. It's been a minute, but we are all very excited to show off some of the wild world of 10.5 that we're all playing in right now, and hear a little bit about a bunch of different factions. We're going to be covering lists. We're going to be covering updates and rules changes. We're going to be answering a whole bunch of listener questions. So if you want to be here for any of that, strap on in, pour yourself a nice warm beverage, and get a fire going or whatnot, whatever it takes to listen to a podcast these days. Of course, I am not alone here. Before we get into any of that, I got to check in with the boys. I am joined, of course, by my co-host,
Mr. Lucas Troller. And
the illustrious
Nicholas Olson Johnson.
That intro was jumbled, but you get the idea. We're going to do this more often. How you doing today, boys? How's it going, Lucas?
Oh, I'm okay. I'm super tired. For those watching live, you of course know that it is the middle of the night in the United States. So I'm excited for the midnight podcast. It's going to be sick. Just a ton of 40K going on lately. And Tyler, your mic's a bit fuzzy right now. So, overall doing all right. And let's see, no tournaments coming up for a while, which definitely has me down right now. But there's just so much to theory craft. I'm going to need a couple weeks to decide what's best anyway. So that's where I'm at right now. How about you, Nick? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Like Taylor said, this is the new year. And I know there's not like a lot coming up immediately, but I know we've got a lot to look forward to at the end of this month and near the end of next month. So kind of got my mind, the Warhammer brain active right now. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about some new lists tonight, some of the new detachments, and what's been getting us excited. So, how about you, Tyler? How are you doing?
Oh yeah, man, I'm doing really well. Sorry about the noise there. I'll take that out in post. It's my computer fans are going crazy, but it is not the middle of the night over here. It is the middle of the night instead. It's 6:20 a.m. Haidar over there in Iceland. It's 5:20 a.m. Thanks for showing up, brother. I am super excited about 8,000 different things. The whole meta is on its head, and we're all trying to figure everything out. Playing a lot of TTS, having a good time with that. But I also just got back from a holiday vacation out in Madrid. We were there for New Year's, had a lovely time. So I am also exhausted and also very excited to talk Warhammer right now because, man, there is some exciting stuff to talk about. So let's get right into it. Just to catch everyone up here, Lucas, what has happened in the last couple weeks in terms of Warhammer? If you've been living under a rock, what did we get?
Well, let's see. So I think our last show was a SLesh recap, which was like December 13th or 14th, something like that. So I think since then we've basically received the data slate and are working our way through that. And we've also gotten 20 something new detachments via Grotmas.
I think it's 30.
30 new detachments via Grotmas. Oh, because there's a bunch of factions that have multiple, like demons, right?
Demons.
Might be the only one. And we also got some new units, Orcs got some new units. Are there other factions that have gotten new units? Well, that's the important one. But yeah, I think that just about surmises it. But wow, 30 detachments is a lot. Holy cow. That's 6 codexes all at once. Which is pretty wild.
Did we have a slate at the SLesh episode? I think we did.
I think it had come out, but we were talking about SLesh, via the previous slate.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we'll definitely bring up some of those things as they come up, but there were, a number of changes in there as well. Some of which I think flew a little bit under the radar. Good bunch of stuff. Sweet. Well, let's talk about some of the the highs, the lows, and the disappointments in terms of some of the Grotma stuff and some of the changes here. What are some of the parts that you guys are most excited about coming out of all this? Now that the dust has settled a little bit more, what are we actually looking forward to?
So in my mind, Grotmas has kind of been like, at least the way my brain kind of compartmentalizes it, I think there's like 3 kind of categories of Grotmas detachments. The first one is factions that just I think their Grotmas detachment was basically a disappointment, and it's worse than all the options they currently have available. So among those, I think like kind of some classic examples are like Thousand Sons and Eldar. We're both like, they have an existing detachment that has a certain power level, and then the new Grotmas detachment is like basically worse by almost every metric, right? And that can be for a couple different reasons, but overall, those were just kind of like letdowns. There's also a massive... Yeah, Tyler, your mic is absolutely popping off, my guy. I'm sorry. So there's another kind of contingent, I would say, that... and this is especially noticeable when you're comparing it to an index detachment. So, for example, I'm thinking right now about Death Guard, where the Grotmas detachment clearly plays into certain opponents better and into other opponents worse. So, like Death Guard and World Leaders, I both am thinking about right now. Where I'm like, this in my mind is a strict upgrade against shooting, and honestly, Tactical Brigade as well. I'm like, this is a strict upgrade in terms of when you're playing against a shooting opponent, and a strict downgrade if you're playing into like a brawling melee opponent, right? Like if I'm playing Vessels of Wrath or what's the Death Guard one called? Flyblown Host. If I'm playing those into Tau, I think my game is better than it was before. But if I'm playing it into Space Wolves or like World Leaders or Warhorde Orcs, I think it's strictly worse. So those are kind of like side grade, and you now have like a completely different avenue from which to approach the faction, which I think is cool. Overall the power level might be a little bit better or a little bit worse, but it's like a clear and distinct option, which is honestly amazing. It's wonderful, just giving new opportunities to explore. And then there's another whole contingent, the third contingent of Grotmas detachments, which are just like, this is a strict upgrade over what we exist, is already present. And I think like Grey Knights is kind of like the quintessential example of this detachment. Yeah, you lose out on a little bit of durability, but like the offense you get from it is just so much better than what we currently have that it's worth it like 95% of the way. So I don't know if you guys kind of vibe with that at all, but that's how my brain kind of delineates everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say like what I'm most excited about is just seeing all the experimentation. Like we have all these factions that have only really had like one option, right? For I don't know, we're coming up on a year and a half of 10th edition. And so the fact that like a good amount of factions still only had like one build with like minor variations within was kind of boring. So like this is super exciting. Like you said, there are some that it's like the Grotmas detachment's a strict upgrade, so we just like are playing that now, I guess. There's some where it's like, I think the most interesting ones are the ones where you're like, this is just another tool in the arsenal. And then the ones that are obviously the least exciting are the ones that are just like, this is a strict downgrade or like very niche application. So it's cool seeing some of like the design direction they're going with like these ones that like now we like these index ones where there's only 2 available now. Like Votan is one I think of a lot, where there's only a second one available. I think most people feel like it's probably worse. There might be some niche scenarios where it's better. But like it's interesting kind of seeing like this is the design direction they're choosing for this faction that we don't have a codex for yet. So I don't know. I think it's really cool. Like I'd love to see them do more shit like this in the future. This is kind of one of those like imagine if they release every codex at the start of an edition, right? Or imagine if they release like 2 detachments at the start of an edition. Having options available is super cool. And like all of last month was super cool because every day I was waking up to like see people's new exciting builds and reactions. And I'm just looking for now like I guess like the aftermath of all that. Like the next 3 months, we're gonna see a lot of innovation. We're going to see a lot of new lists. We're going to see a lot of stuff that people wrote off was bad, and then like someone comes up out of nowhere and it's like, actually, this is really good. If you play it this way. So getting this much Warhammer dropped at once is really cool, and it's a game that takes a little bit for people to innovate with, right? So that's what I'm most excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. How is this? How's the audio over here? Is it still terrible? Much
You're good.
better. Great.
No
I have solved
fans.
the problem. Yeah, I'm with you guys is on both of those. I think there's some overlap there in terms of what these weird side grady things are, and some of the downgrady stuff. It bums me out at times, like how few people play this game, because if like 10 times as many people played 40K, nothing would go unexplored, and just so much stuff is not going to get the attention that it would really need to get to pop off properly. So I hope that that we see some of what Nick's talking about here in the unexpected, surprise contenders that everyone kind of wrote off early on.
And besides, like, worst case scenario, what happens? Eldar and Thousand Sons didn't get cool rules. Oh, bummer. Dude. Oh, wah! Sorry. Not sorry, though.
Yeah, for sure. Taos is asking here, Nick, what you think of as being some strict upgrades, and he brings up Krons as a potential example. Let's talk about some of these detachments. Maybe not as much about the ones we'll talk about in depth a little bit more, but kind of the some of the other nonsense. But you can talk about Krons for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to answer that about Necrons, the Necrons attachment's very good, right? Star Shatter is very good. I think the initial reaction to it was a little overblown. Yes, it's a fast faction. We'll talk about it more actually, because like I've been playing it a little bit. And yeah, I don't think it's like the best attachment in their book. I think it's just like it's another tool in the arsenal. But it is the new shiny toy, and it is more interesting to experiment with than Hypercrypt and Awakened, which we've been playing for a while. But like before this, I mean, I wouldn't say it's better. It's definitely better than Obesians in my opinion. But like people were starting to like experiment with that attachment even, and like doing like 4-1s at tournaments and stuff with that. So I think it's just another tool in the arsenal, but a very powerful tool at that. And it may be a strict upgrade over Awakened, but like it's very different than Hypercrypt, right? Hypercrypt is like teleporting all angles damage, whereas this is like fast damage, but still kind of has to play within the bounds of like I have to move around terrain. So
yeah. I don't know about you, but I feel like Hypercrypt is kind of entirely dead at this point, and I think this is kind of the default best detachment in the book. I think the question is more about the external power scaling. That's not as sure for me than the internal.
Yeah, this is probably a better one than Crypt. Yeah, because the downside with it too, and we'll kind of see it here too, is like Cron gun builds like have a lot of potential damage, but then you like throw every gun in there, and then you're like, wait a minute, I have like no screens or nothing to hold objectives with, or nothing to do secondaries with. So this one does do that, I guess, the best, because it's like I'm gonna go put trash out there, you have to come kill the trash, and then I like pounce on you with my advanced shoot guns that are really efficient.
In my mind, I definitely think, I mean, I think it's pretty undisputable that Star Shatter is very powerful, but the initial reaction was very, maybe overblown is the right word. It was very severe, to be sure. I do think it is an upgrade. I mean, like you were saying, Tyler, I think Hypercrypt is pretty kind of just meek at this point.
I mean, they went at it hard in those nerfs, man.
Which admittedly it survived like several rounds of attempted nerfs in a row, but it was pretty brutal this latest round. But what really like kind of sets Star Shatter ahead in my mind of the other two the other detachments that folks would consider in Krons, like just compare it to Awakened Dynasties. Like, what are you actually getting from Awakened Dynasties that you can't also get in Star Shatter? Because like in my mind, the Awakened is the melee counterpunch detachment, and then the Star Shatter is the fast gun detachment. But like countercharge units like Wraiths and Scorpex and stuff are still good in Star Shatter because they get +1 to hit onto objectives and 1 CP +1 to wound. Yep. They can also, unless I'm mistaken, like react and move away when they get shot, right?
I believe so. It's just it's not D6 and it's D6 instead of flat 6. Yeah.
So like you still have
Yeah.
lots of tools available to you, right? Like,
And I think it's
you're
the same play
kind of
style as
getting the same
Awakened,
amount
just
out of Awakened
way
as
higher
you
damage
are.
output.
Exactly.
So the thing about
yeah.
Awakened is like the DDAs weren't as good, right? So like you could just push into it, and they're like, "Oh, you're getting close to me." But like Star Shatter, you walk out into the open, and they just launch, volleys at you from 72 inches away. So
Yeah, I think it's somewhat disingenuous to say that Star Shatter can do everything that Awaken can, because the Awakened Dynasty detachment really is one stratagem in a very funny hat, and not having that character get back up stratagem like fundamentally changes how the army works. But from a units perspective, a lot of the same stuff that was good in Awakened, maybe just as good, if not better, in Star
yeah,
Shatter.
I'm just more
Absolutely.
like the same thing that they're trying to get you to come to the mid board to pounce on you, and I think Star Shatter can threaten that a lot better.
Yeah,
Because it can also be like, did you misdeploy against me? You lose,
for sure. Yeah, I think that also there's going to be some level of bias here in terms of terrain layouts. I think I really underrate Star Shatter because I've just only been playing on WTC for the last 6 months,
Yeah.
and man, are those vehicles awkward as hell to move around ruins. They need to be that fast to be functional. You need to either be uppy downing or going infinity inches, and if you don't have either of those things, you're not going anywhere, even with them. Like, Spore Mine privilege over here, but like I'm not that impressed with the mobility of that army. Yeah, absolutely. So about some of the other factions that none of us are playing here that I think are also making a lot of waves. Have you guys gotten to play into the new Guard yet?
New, but yeah.
Cool. It's really freaking scary. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Those things shoot wildly hard.
+1 to wound, right? Out in droves is pretty good.
Pretty good buff. Yeah. It seems like there's kind of two versions of that list as it exists right now. There's the actually all in on the infantry, and there's the maybe we should bring a couple tank commanders. And both of them are very scary to most of those things in the meta. I think which of those you're playing is based a little bit more around your comp, but I am very impressed with what that army has is to bring to bear. I think that they are the reason that Deep Strike Denial is a pretty mandatory tool if you can take it right now. We'll talk more about Granites later, but they don't use it. And Hyper Crypt is dead, and Host of Ascension isn't really that real either. So like you're basically just taking it for Scions, but I think you want it for Scions because God, do I hate Scions and Aquilons and the rest of it. It's just a lot to put down. Demons. Oh man, I've got some thoughts on demons. I don't know about you guys. Have you gotten to play in the SLesh, Lucas or Nick? Yeah. No.
No, I've seen some Tzeentch, and that's about it. Actually, I've seen a little bit of SLesh too.
What do you guys think about these guys?
I think they're really good. I think there's probably still some decent stuff in the old detachment, right? Because like 6-inch charges out of Deep Strike are decent. But I think like the Tzeentch, the SLesh, even the Khorne detachment have a lot of power. I'm sure there's something in the Nurgle detachment. So yeah, I wouldn't like call these like strict 100% upgrades, but they're certainly powerful, and like they're certainly upgrades for like a style of list. Like they're way more like defined, right? Like if you want to play like this type of like list, now you've gotten 4 new options of how to play demons, and they're all very strong. Maybe not Nurgle.
What I really like is, obviously the undivided detachment still exists and is powerful, but it's not that you can't play other god units in the mono god detachments, right? Like if you really need a backfield holder, I'm thinking SLesh and Khorne in particular, you can just take Plague Bearers. They still do the Plague Bearer thing and are perfectly functional. If you really need a counterpunch, go dig someone out from behind a wall piece in Tzeentch, you can just run Shalaxi if you want. They can survive on the merits of their own data sheet, which I think is really cool. So yeah, I mean, I have not like spoken directly about this, but I've seen a lot of talk from people whose opinions I really trust in the game that, SLesh might not be as like you know, the initial perception was, wow, if you can get real hits and wounds against shooting armies with SLesh, I mean, that's the niche, right? Like SLesh hunts shooting armies and kind of tries to stay away from melee armies. And the people that I've talked to haven't really found that to be the case, because without advance and charge and only one unit walking through walls a turn, it's a little bit kind of easier to piecemeal the SLesh army than it initially looks on paper. Like, you know, because your only mobility tools is one unit goes through walls and one unit ingresses. Everything else is like a monster walking around on the field. It's very bogged downable, and like you can kind of compartmentalize the problem, which is shooting army's favorite thing to do. But I mean, it's obviously still strong. Like being able to get real hits and wounds, you know, based on how you pick your engagements is really powerful. So, and also fallback and charge. Fallback and charge is really powerful for that army. It's like you can't bog down any remnants, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think SLesh will be strong. I unfortunately, I think Tzeentch still runs into the same issues it did before. I mean, the detachment's very cool and thematic, and you know, I think there will be some sauce there, but I think it is ultimately still like rushable. You know, it's like the damage threshold that it has is still kind of about the same as it was in if you were playing like mono Tzeentch in the undivided detachment. So Khorne is the one to me. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts about Khorne. Khorne is the one that's like a massive question mark because I haven't seen anyone try it, and I haven't really seen any list ideation yet on it. It's kind of like purely in the theory perspective, or it's like just theory in my head right now. What do you guys think about Khorne?
Yeah, the Khorne movement tricks are a whole lot of fun. I think that people are really undervaluing how absurd the "you're tagged and there's no getting out" period situation is with a Bloodthirster and whatnot. Like that is a really backbreaking thing to have to play into. And the bloodletter movements and the timing on the sticky just seem like a ton of fun to me.
Yeah.
My biggest takeaway from Gras is, Jesus Christ, I wish I had 3,000 hours to put into Warhammer right now, because there are so many factions that I do not play in the slightest. It just looks so cool. But yeah, I don't see anyone really running on Khorne right now. So if you want to catch some people off guard, please let me know how that's working for you.
Yeah, I think they also still are like the one that has access to a 6-inch charge outside of like a 6-inch charge out of Deep Strike outside of the index detachment. Yeah, but like the ability to kill someone on an objective, sticky it, and then be like, okay, if you come try to stand on this, I'll reactive move into combat with you, or you give it to me, is like an insanely powerful tool. Obviously, like the weakness of Bloodletters is like low attack, expensive, yada yada. But like, what is it? A lot of like their mobility issues with Thirsters and like Crushers being able to go through walls now is really good. I think the Khorne detachment is, yeah, like what people are saying in the chat, especially too, is like it's probably has like an insanely strong set of rules. But it's probably going to be the most difficult one to figure out how to play, right? Compared to SLesh, compared to Tzeentch.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that people are sleeping on Nurgle big time right now. I get that it's very much in my sort of sphere of, I'm a little bit biased here, I guess. But that detachment has some tools. Surprise is you're in the shadow. Surprise, take 11 different battle shocks and everyone takes mortal wounds. Like there are some armies right now that are wildly weak to mortals. I think the biggest example is the other thing we haven't talked about yet is what is it? Solar Spear Custodies? Is that what they're called?
Yeah, that's a cool
because
detachment.
Jesus Christ, that detachment is wild. We'll talk about it in a sec. But also, it is super weak to mortal wounds. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That entire army is like, if it's like 3 Telemons, that's 36 wounds, and then 3 Little Dreads is 18 plus some friends. Like in total, we're talking about what, 54 plus 3d6, so like 60 to 70 wounds running at you, assuming they all come back. Like, if you can do 15 to 20 mortal wounds over the course of a couple turns, like that's a third of their army just gone. And that seems like a totally plausible thing for Nurgle to get it done. I'm very, very excited to see what people can do with demons in a bunch of different places. But yeah, let's talk about those custodians. Have you guys gotten to play into that yet?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because
Very
Tanner's
high
been
on that
playing it.
attachment.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you guys think of Solar Spear?
Yeah, I've played into it 3 times now. It's very interesting. Obviously the dreadnoughts get the most benefit. There's some help for things like Caladius, which is cool. I mean, it's not cool.
It's
I think
not
it's
cool. Fuck
obnoxious.
Caladi.
But yeah, I mean the dreadnoughts being good is great.
Yes.
And it's what's awesome is like it buffs 3 of the 4 things that make the dreadnoughts good, but it really like accentuates the fact that that 4th thing, which is durability, is kind of a weakness, right? Like there's one defensive strat as far as I'm aware in the entire detachment for dreadnoughts, and like their durability was always, it's like they're basic marine dreadnoughts, so with a 5-up invuln, I guess the Telemon is a 4-up. They're not that hard to kill, but everything they do outside of receive damage is like so much better in the detachment, which is really awesome. The combination of being able to kind of mix and match what you need between walk through walls, advance, and charge. Like you can get 2 combats going in different places. You can get 1 super far combat going in one place. That's really awesome. The thing that Tanner's been on that I think a lot of folks are sleeping on is like the bikers, because they provide a very unique offensive profile, and it's all mass as well. You can get them real ones to hit, which is great because it kind of shores up the problem of like, oh, I rolled too many ones to hit, and all of a sudden this combat flopped. If you're near that dreadnought, you have like 120% hits or whatever, and then you go in there with Lance. The bikers can go through walls in the movement phase, and especially when you have them joined to a captain, they can just like spam that strat for free every single turn you need to send a biker squad in. There's this weird thing with the bikers where I talked to a Custodes player and they absolutely despise the bikers and will never ever try them again. And then I talked to Tanner and he's like, these are the bikes are the best thing ever, and I would rather take out dreadnoughts than take out the bikers in this detachment. I don't get it. But every time I've been hit by the bikers, it's like delete 20 orcs and the attached character. Okay. And then, delete a truck and shooting and then 2 squads of knobs or whatever in the charge phase. It's like, okay. They hit like insanely hard and they're great for just like wiping a flank and turning it, which is great.
Yeah, the mortal slicing is really strong too.
It is.
Like the cool thing about the detachment is, like I see Tyler shaking his head over here the moment you mentioned the bikes.
The bikes are terrible. They're so bad.
But like, I don't agree with you. Like, I think that there's so many different choices you can make within this detachment. I definitely don't think it's solved. I think there's a lot of good options, which is cool.
Why do you think the bikers are bad?
Because I think they're like wildly expensive for what you get out of them. I think they do mortals once a game, which is cute, and they die. I think that in an army that already has a real problem with walls because it has one thing that gets to walk through a turn, having another unit that struggles with walls is not a good idea. I think that their melee profile is the same as the rest of the custodians. Like I'd just rather have a Warden brick. They don't really take advantage of ingress. Do they even have deep strike? They don't, do they?
They do not.
Yeah, they don't have deep strikes. So they're not really ingressing in. They're just another thing that has to find its way to finagle in and around, right? And they give a really different. And they can't take advantage of short walls. Again, WTC terrain like bias here, but that unit is just like fundamentally awkward to move around. I gotta run to the restroom. You guys keep people entertained for a sec.
Wow, dude.
Well,
Shit's on
time to
bikers
talk
and then
about why
leaves.
that's a dog shit idiot opinion,
Yeah,
and Tyler's
seems like Tyler's
absolute
wrong, dude.
piece of shit dumbass, dude.
Yeah, not here to defend his opinion.
I don't know.
I did notice on WTC terrain they can't stage as aggressively, right? Because they can't sit in the ruin because they're too tall. I do think that the Warden brick is really cool. Like I'm liking seeing this stuff that people are doing where it's like, okay, here's this attachment Star Shatter, here's this attachment Solar Spearhead. Go play a bunch of vehicles and mounted units, you goobers. And people are like, what if I still played an infantry unit? It's like, oh shit, oh no, it's actually good in there, So I like that kind of part about Warhammer. So
I mean, I have been impressed by the Warden brick in that detachment, just like
as an Ingress threat, it's fantastic.
Like Ingress threat, but also like the natural expansion garter. right? Like,
That too.
while you're worrying about all these dreadnoughts, they do require commitment to kill, even though durability is their weakness. Okay, well, here is one durable piece that will control your expansion.
Yep.
Basically, no
Yeah.
matter what. I think that's very powerful for sure.
Yeah, the Warden Breakable Legium's good.
It's just a matter of like, do you prefer allocating points to that role, or do you prefer allocating points to the, the bikers who can go and actually like one turn attack your opponent's natural expansion?
Yep.
I like the bikers for that personally.
Yeah. I've seen some people also put in like a solo Trajan on their list as a like little Ingress threat that's hard to screen because like he's on a 40. I mean Trajan's still a beatstick. I don't know if that's better than another Dreadnought. I don't know if they're exactly 1-for-1, but like obviously they're close. So
All right, I'm back, and your opinions are bad.
wow,
think
we just
that
said the bikers were bad. No, he agrees with this.
I think that the other thing that the Wardens have going for them over bikes is that they do kind of solve that durability problem, right? You're trying to threat saturate with this list fundamentally and saying, hey, shove, here's my large pile of dreadnoughts. If you are able to kill them quick enough, great. And if you're not, you just kind of get run over. Saying, here's my pile of dreadnoughts and also a Warden brick that's going to, not take damage in one of these two phases becomes a little bit more or backbreaking because it's not solvable in a lot of other ways, right? One of the problems that the Dread Knights run into is that they are really easy to bog down in combat, has been my experience, because this army does not have a fallback and do anything, right? And the Dreads all have 5 attacks, hitting on 2 sustained, so they're kill 5 dudes at most. And admittedly, I'm a little bit biased because I've been playing AdMech right now, so I have like -1 to hit in melee and a 5 up invul, but like just 10 guardsmen keep a Dread Knight in combat for 2 phases. They just do. And the Wardens solve that much more efficiently than the bikes do because you're getting, twice as many attacks. And then also that Blade Champ with the enhancement goes really hard. Those sweeps at +1 damage are spicy. But yeah, Custodes, fantastic attachment. Probably a little bit too strong. I'm excited to see what happens with it. And then what are people saying in the comments? Spikes can't advance and charge in that detachment. Yep, it's a problem. What do you think? Do you think? I know you don't have a Votan list for us here today, Nick. So do you have any thoughts for Mr. Deadhill here in the comments? Do you think Votan is playing a singles tourney or just gets beat up by Guard Marines and other stuff at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, so kind of like that's what we've been orbiting around a bit. Like the big boogeymen seem to be like drop shoot guard, quite strong. Marines very strong because like outside of Grotmist, right? The data slate gave them +1 to wound if you're not one of the
if you're Codex compliant,
yeah. Which surprise, what's one of the best Codex compliant chapters that's been good the whole time? Ultramarines. There's a guy in there who also gives you 2 oaths at moment and a free strat every player turn. And he's a melee counterpunch for a gunline army. Who stands back up? Okay, anyways.
And he's a lone op.
Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, Marines are really good. Yeah, I mean, I think Votan's still good. I think like, especially like if we're talking about like a singles tourney, I don't think you can really play hackathons anymore. I think that unfortunately, because of just the aforementioned oath thing right there, Marines are just so good at picking 2 big targets and annihilating them. And what were people playing? Like double hackathon. I don't think that's what's up anymore. I think you got to just go, I'm going to spam shit and I'm going to like deny primary and score secondaries and like take some like trades here and when like where I can. And like you got to hope that's enough. I also think it's a lot better playing in a guard, right? Because you got a lot more stuff to screen with too, right? If we're like talking about drop shoot Scions, and also if they're dropping in Scions and annihilating a Sagittar, it's like, okay, cool, you killed a Sagittar. I'll kill that unit now. So yeah, I don't know if Votan has like the output to clear through guard that efficiently, honestly. But if you want to try, like you need to be bringing bikes. Weirdly enough, I think that the Hearthguard are good into them just because of the grenade launchers, but I don't know if the Hearthguard are point sufficient enough because like they still just die to like a Scion squad and they're like 400 points. So like, yeah, I don't know. I think you got to run 2x6 bikes and like 6 Sagittars and dudes in the Sagittars and see what happens. But yeah, it's not like you're not mega favored to win the tournament, but you could definitely go like X and 1 with Votan.
Totally. I think Votan were hit probably one of the hardest of anyone with the AOC nerf.
Yeah, although like you weren't really playing 10-man Hearthguard, but like you certainly aren't now.
I meant for the land forts.
Okay, that too. Fair enough.
Right. That the idea of building your army around 2 or 3 of these massive 2-up AOC pieces and just being, oh no, actually, like I don't get to pick one that just lives anymore. If you have MSU damage,
I guess I kind of just wrote those out of my mind because like double +1 a wound oaths with like maybe if you're playing like Libby Conclave, Dev Wound, Sternguard, like yeah, the Hecaton's dead. Like
that
in a singles tournament.
That being said, I do feel like the MSU like unit spam Votan list is actually pretty good into enemy AOC because of the nerf, right? Like if you have 5 or 6 Sagittars, okay, I'm +1 to wound against your T11 Vindicator with my Strength 12 gun. Do you want to AOC? No? Okay, boom. Maybe they did. Okay, the next one isn't getting AOC'd, right? Like, and you're not that vulnerable to lots of Oath of Moment. Like, they get to very efficiently kill 2 Sagittars per turn. Okay.
Yep.
Like, you still have 12 other units. So I actually think you're pretty solid in the Marines as Votan. And, like, one of the Marine weaknesses right now is they're super light on the ground. So if you get to trade early, especially if you get to kill one of their like crap units with your 10 Jaegers and get 3 CP out of it and be like, okay, play the game with an actual tank, I'm going to kill it with Sagittars.
Yeah. You don't get to play my favorite unit anymore, though, which is the 10-man Circers. But, you know, it's okay. No one's playing Deathwing Knights anymore, so we're fine.
Yeah. I think the meta is swinging really radically toward in a backwards direction here. I feel like we had big bricks for a while that were doing really well. We had things like Thunderwolf Cav that were running around. We had things like Deathwing Knights where it was like, oh man, you have a couple of really big pieces. And I think that MSU is going to get a lot more play, especially once we start talking about what some of these lists look like. I know that your Orcs right now are looking pretty MSU, Lucas. And Scions are in a similar place. I could see Votan fitting into that. People have got a lot of other factions they want us to talk about. We'll talk about some more of that stuff at the end if we have some time, but we're already almost 40 minutes in. I do want to give a quick top 5 hot take. What do we think the top 5 armies in the game are right now, just off the top, up the dome? I'll give my 5, and then you can disagree. I want to do this real quick. I think right now, and in no particular order, right? I'm just like, this is what like top of A, low S tier is for me right now. Yeah, feel free to write down what you need to write. I think it's going to be Guard. I think it's going to be Orcs. Tactical Brigade Orcs are fantastic. I think they're a great army. They're really fucking good. I think it's going to be Solar Spear Custodes. I think those 3 are definitely up there. And then I think it gets a little more interesting. I personally think it's Warpbane because I've been bullied by that army way too many times, but we'll see. And then I think the 5th slot is a little more up in the air. It's probably some flavor of Marines or other, or maybe it's Bile. I'm going to put Bile. I'll say Bile as my top 5. And I'll put Ultramarines have to make the top 5. Who gets cut for that? Maybe Orcs and Granites don't quite make it, but that's probably my 5 or 6. What do you guys think doesn't fit in there, and what do you think should that I didn't mention?
Lucas, do you want to eviscerate this man's opinions or no?
Oh my god, I have no fucking clue. What am I talking about?
I can go first.
No, go for it. Go for it.
I think
we are the authority figures here, Lucas. It is what we say is law, and anyone who disagrees is a plebiscite.
I've got a looser idea on the meta than you guys do. Because I haven't been playing as much as you guys. But what I'm scared of, like if I were to like go to a tournament this week, what I would be like looking out for is definitely Marines. And some of this is like based off of strength, but also like strength plus popularity, in my opinion. Marines for sure. You're going to see a shitload of Marines. They're going to be good. Even like a mediocre player is going to be scary with them. So like you got to be prepared to deal with that. Guard of some variety, especially drop shoe guard, right? Scions. I think those 2 definitely stand out to me. I think Necrons of some variety. Like I know we were like shitting on Star Shatter a bit earlier, but like they're still scary. They can still win games. You need to and there are quite a lot of Necron players out there as we've seen. They're a popular army. So I'd be like on the lookout for those. After that, it kind of gets a little hazy. I think the GK detachment's really strong. I don't know if I'd be on the lookout for it as much. They're like a relatively unpopular army. But they are still pretty strong. I think Orcs, I'd be scared of Orcs. There are like 3 great Orc detachments, maybe even 4, and they are a popular army as well. After that, I don't know. So I think I'm gonna go with, I guess, those, and I'll throw Granites in there as like it's very strong and you should be on the lookout for it. Probably Custodes Dreads. That's a fucking brainlit army that people are just gonna sprint at you, and it's gonna be very popular up here in the PNW. So yeah, those are my top 5.
So you completely agree with me and you haven't played against CSM yet. Sounds good. Lucas.
I did not put CSM in there.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
I played against
mentioned
Bio.
You mentioned 5 armies. I mentioned 6, and all 5 of the ones you mentioned are 5 of my 6. But cool. You don't think CSM is in there. Reasonable take. What do you
I
think?
don't think they're in the top 5, but I think they're very strong.
Totally.
Warp Bane, Ultramarines, Custodes Dreadnoughts, Imperial Power Armor, Honkshu. Gene Stealer Cults. MSC meta.
Orcs, don't say Orcs. Don't say Orcs. Don't say Orcs.
I'm not gonna say Orcs. Orcs are terrible. Doggy doo-doo, horrible tier.
Okay.
And
yeah, I'd like to rescind my Orc answer and say GSC tanks, actually.
Sure.
Oh, Tanner Herbert in the
Tanner,
chat.
you better paid me $10 to say that. Sorry.
Tanner shitting himself in the Brood Brothers detachment yet again.
What? Why is he in Brood Brothers? We'll talk about GSC tanks in a minute. I think they're fantastic, but not in Brood Brothers.
I had another one, and it's eluded me.
Is it a CK?
No. Not Bile, but Chaos Raiders.
Raiders is great. It's also great.
I think Warp Talons are a fantastic data sheet right now. Why are you laughing? Tell me why you're laughing right now, so I can.
I think Breakaboys are a fantastic unit. That's what
They're excellent. They are top 5 data sheets in the game, no questions asked. Phenomenal data sheets, so good.
Come down there and break your skull open with a smash hammer.
I'd say Warp Talons are 6 though. Breakaboys one above them.
Definitely. Yeah. Anyway. Sweet. Let's get into some actual lists here. We've been talking high and mighty for a while. What I'm hearing is that we're basically in agreement here about what the good armies are right now, and my blistering hot takes are incredibly boring to y'all because you have the same beliefs.
And no one else said Necrons besides me, dude. You guys are gonna get Star Shattered, dude.
I've played into them twice. Hasn't impressed me yet, but we'll see. All right. Let's talk about some of our actual armies that we are actually playing and how they go. I do want to mention, someone's talking in the comments about Tau. Tau are so cool. Play that detachment. It's so good.
Yeah.
The Renegade Raider strat is like the best strat in the game, and they gave it to a shooting army. What is happening?
There's 2 really cool detachments like that. Yeah, I guess we didn't talk about like our favorite Grotmus detachments. Flavor-wise, I think the Tau one, auxiliary one, and the goofy Dark Eldar one are like 2 of the
Gambits, dude.
I think like what the idea of like your main army works with like a smaller sub army, and like I love that the Dark Eldar one is like them and the Harlequins are trying to like compete with each other, whereas the Tau one is like they're working together. Like the flavor of those detachments is very cool. The Tau one is definitely very strong. I don't know about the Dark Eldar one, but the Tau one is definitely very strong. And I think that those are like huge both flavor and design wins. And like compared to like something like the Eldar detachment, which dropped, was mega boring and no one's ever talked about it again.
Totally. I think the Elder Detachment nails, in kind of a weird way, it kind of does the thing that Ynnari was supposed to do back in the day, like 8th edition Ynnari, where like you're trying to set up this cascade of events where every activation leads into the next one as you're flipping the gambit back and forth and back and forth. And if at any point in time you like undercommit or do your math wrong, or in some way it break that cascade, like the whole thing, the wheels fall off. But it could be really scary if it works. And then they very smartly brought down the power level to a reasonable place, because momentum like that can be really difficult. Anyway, let's talk about some lists. I'm on 2 laptops here. All right. First up is me. Freaking love this GSC detachment. Oh my gosh, it's so good. People have been not that impressed with Final Day. I think they're wrong. I think this detachment is fantastic, and here is where I am at with it right now. I'm going to be putting a lot more reps into this in the next couple weeks, and maybe we'll end up in somewhere entirely different. But a couple games in, and this has felt really solid. It does a lot of the things. I want more gargoyles, but I really like all of my pieces, so I'm not sure what gets pulled out of it. So here's what's going on. On the Nid side, we've got Death Leaper, a Parasite of Mortrex, 2 squads of 10 gargoyles, a Lictor, a Neurolictor, and 3 Raveners, which is just like basically all of my favorite tools, minus a Biovore in one little bundle there. And then on the GSC side, we've got a Jackal Alphys, a Patriarch with the no Overwatch enhancement, 5 Acolytes with melee weapons or auto pistols or whatever, 10 Neophytes with the normal stuff, 3 squads of 5 Metamorphs with Hand Flamers. I think this is the juice in this detachment. MSU metas are insane. The Cult Ambush change was a wild decision. It makes the army so much better, and this is one of the units that can take best advantage of it. We've got a 10-man Pure Strain to go with that no Overwatch Patriarch, and then we've got 3 squads of Ridge Runners, 2 squads of 2 with lasers and spotters, and then a Mortar Ridge Runner with a Survey Auger because AP4 ignores cover is disgusting. And then I've got 3 Rock Grinders with mining lasers. Oh, this data sheet is so good. It does a little bit of everything. It's an open top transport with firing deck 6. It's got the laser for guns. It's got the demo charges when it gets in close. It's got great melee. It's got great tank shocks. It's got a great little data sheet ability that synergizes well with a lot of the rest of the list. This is like the kind of MSU nonsense army of my dreams. Maybe the Pure Strain bomb gets cut, but it's too much fun playing with it right now. So we'll see how that goes long term. But yeah, this is what Final Day looks like for me right now. I know a lot of people have been wondering what that list looks like, and this is how it works. It's super fun to play. Oh, Jurek's here. Awesome. Ben had a lot of fun playing against this. I'm glad to hear it. We played this into the Guard Scions, and it did pretty darn well. It does the thing in a lot of places. The play patterns with Final Day are a little bit tricky to get the hang of because you need everyone to be within 6 inches of NIDs all the time. But as long as you're able to set things up in the right places, really strong power in terms of just like straight math, like this shoots people off the table. But then also a whole bunch of fantastic tricks with all the ambush respawns, the killing of your own guys with the NIDs and the respawns are great. And the pile of lone ops combined with a little bit of nonsense and the uppy downy movement tricks. Like this army has everything that I want in an army other than a Biovore, and it's a whole lot of fun.
Why no more Gargs?
Yeah, I think that there's a definite argument to taking, honestly, a ton of Gargs. I think you could take 50 in Final Day and not be entirely crazy, and anything less than that certainly as well. They are really expensive. Man, they do a lot though. But I would like some more of them, but I really want all of these pieces. 4 lone ops might be one too many. I might not need the regular Lictor, but having something that I can send out early to sack to run into the middle. Maybe that should just be a GSC unit, and then I could save some points, but the GSC units are expensive.
The Neurolictor is the one that kind of boggles my mind because it doesn't have a lot of synergy with it. Is it because you need synapse to kill people, kill models or whatever?
Yeah, you need synapse to kill models as part of it. He also benefits from the heal more than almost anyone else, because that's the other part of it is you kill models and then you get to heal. And Neurolictors so often tank way more than they're supposed to and then limp out with 1 or 2 wounds. And to be like, oh no, I'm actually at full health is disgusting on him. And then the ability to, like always, just be like, well, your primary denial is always contingent on a battle shock check is really great in an army with a bunch of lone ops trying to death by 1,000 cuts here. But yeah,
True.
He also then lets the parasite send in to try to get itself killed for the +1 hit and wound and still have some synapse elsewhere on the table. So I love him for those reasons. Also, weird thing that makes him beneficial over just taking another parasite. I have been able to facilitate getting command points out of him more often in this army than I have in previous armies. Just because there's so much MSU damage to go around that you can very often whittle something down to just a character running around, and you can just run in and smack him and grab a command point for his efforts. Yeah, all lictors, neurolictors, and death leaper. When they kill characters in melee, give you a CP. They eat their brains.
Never heard of tier 2 players tell me that that's a rule, dude.
They forget it all the time, but it is one of the best things about them in
That's
this
so
list
cool.
because, yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's very thematic and like very reasonable, like amount of hoops to jump through to get that benefit to them. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Remind me, what does the synapse do for the GSC units, or does it not do anything?
So there's two. The buffs flow both ways. So get my timing right here. At the end of my movement phase, I can pick a synapse unit, and that synapse unit picks a GSC unit that it can see within, I don't remember if it's 6 or 9. Doesn't matter. In range and line of sight, and a Tyrannid unit within range and maybe line of sight. Don't remember. It could be itself as the Tyrannid unit. It could be another one. That GSC unit takes D3 plus 1 mortal wounds, and the Tyrannid unit heals that many wounds and also gets +1 to hit. In addition to that, the way it goes the other way is that all the Tyrannids, synapse and otherwise, have a 6-inch aura of when enemies are in this aura, GSC get +1 to hit against them.
That's very cool. I forgot. I mean, I knew this detachment existed, but when we were talking about like the cool work together detachments earlier, I forgot to mention this one. So
yeah,
glad you've been enjoying it. Seems really cool.
The Gargoyles are especially excellent for the aura management in this because it works in shooting and combat, which is crazy.
Yeah.
It basically means that anytime I need to be, I am just always hitting on 2s all the time. And with the alphas, you can be rerolling 1s at range as well. So the Ridge Runners and the Rock Grinders just shoot incredibly hard. And then the Grinders punch crazy hard as well.
Sounds like we gotta be worried about GSC tanks, Lucas.
This is the way to play them.
Sounds like it's a real list, dude.
We'll be filming a stat rep with this in the next little while, so look forward to seeing that because it's a ton of fun. I have missed forces for so long. Like I feel like everyone has as their like one wish list item. Where like, man, if only you would bring back this thing that I used to love. I feel like for Lucas, it's probably 30-man boy squads.
Yeah. Oh, you crashed down, dude.
Yeah, he's done,
He's
man.
out of here.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Do you have one of those, Nick, where like there's a thing that you used to be able to do that you can't anymore? That just like, man, you wish they would bring it back because it was so much fun to play.
Full melee Necrons, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, you never
Awaken got close
about Scorpex.
Awaken 18 Scorpex was the king.
Yeah,
Most fun list I've ever played. I don't know, maybe.
For me, yeah. But for me, that's always been forces. I hated that they killed forces at the start of the edition, and I've been waiting for them to come back patiently, and they're here now, and they're a ton of fun, and they get the work done. So,
yeah,
highly recommend trying.
Curious, what would your guess have been off the top of your head?
What would
I
my
think I
guess
would have
have
wished
been
for,
the
dude? Yeah, what do you be like? Oh, damn, Nick would love to have this back. What are you gonna say to make me be sad?
Wound rolls on the king for the king. King wound
We already
roll
covered
aura.
that one. We already covered that one, dude. I've accepted that's never coming back.
Mechatrax Scrapjet shooting army.
Nah, that army sucked, dude. I hated playing that army.
Oh yeah, totally. I definitely believe you.
No.
I feel like Scorpex are definitely the biggest thing that I felt like you actually loved a thing as opposed to you just loved running people over with a thing, which is what most of the armies that it felt like you were playing in that stretch came down to.
I did love the funny go 29 or 28 inches Troop Master. That guy was really cool.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I don't want him to bring it back because I don't want to ever
see
that was ever again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you have something like that you missed from a different edition gone by, let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear what else you guys missed this much.
Lucas, I was gonna say, just because your Breakup Boys can kill laser grinders doesn't mean they're not a problem.
Can we fucking move on from this? Let's get this over with. I want to go to bed.
All right, good stuff. So that's where I'm at right now with Final Day GSC. I look forward to some more content about these guys. They're a ton of fun.
Oh, the Psychic.
All right,
that's a good one, Ian.
Yeah.
Holy shit, guys! Look how many Breakup Boys I got in this list. This shit's nutty. I got the 30 knob list.
Yeah, I'm gonna shut up here.
All right. Orcs, Gits, knobs, lads, listen up. It's War Boss Lucas here, trying to learn you good about how to play Orcs. All right, here you go. Ready? You're gonna take your detachment of choice. You're gonna click on the character section. You're gonna select that SAG mech, and then you're gonna hit duplicate twice. And then you're gonna go down to the dedicated transport section, and you're gonna select truck, and you're gonna duplicate it twice. And you're not gonna select the wrecking ball unless you have it modeled.
In which case you're going to break it off and then you're going to deselect it.
Exactly. And you better not put the ladders on your trucks either. That's lame. And then you're going to go down to the other datasheet section and you're going to select tank busters and you're going to put a pulse rocket on those motherfuckers and you're going to hit duplicate twice. Now you're gaming. Yeah, that data sheet is out. That combination of data sheets is absolutely cracked. And I've got 3 of them in basically every single. Oops, nope. There's only 2 of them in this list. How did this work out? I think I typed this in incorrectly. Anyway, so this is
wait. So did you put in a list here that's like 300 points over? What is happening?
No, I think it's only 2x6 tank busters. Okay. So maybe only hit duplicate on tank buster once. Anyway, you definitely want 3 shock attack guns. So this is kind of like in my mind anyway, the default tactical brigade list that I built at first. And it kind of tries to lean into the strength of the detachment, which is shooting, while also like posing enough melee threat to be credible. And this kind of ties back in with something that I said at the beginning of the episode, which is tactical is a list that kind of struggles into other melee armies because it doesn't have the amount of gas that Bully Boys has or the sheer power and fight on death access that Warhorde has. But it's good enough in melee that an army like Guard or an army like Tau treats it the exact same as it would Warhorde or Bully Boys. And you have the benefit of wildly more efficient shooting. So the melee units I'm taking are 3 squads of 10 Snaggers with Beast Bosses. Having access to fall back when the enemy falls back, or like react to move when the enemy falls back, is great for these guys because they can hop in one of the 5 trucks that you're taking. And they can also kind of on demand get either sustained or lethal to help like approximate the damage that Warhorde can do for 1 CP. That's nice. I've also got 3 shock attack guns. One of them is the mech captain. I've seen a lot of folks taking the mega mech as their mech captain, who helps the flash gets a little bit with durability. I don't like the Mega Mech at all. I think the only reason to run him is you want more tank busters, basically. That way you can join a shock attack gun to each one of your tank busters for the full damage package, and then your Luda or your flash get unit's a little bit more durable. But that's kind of 6, 1/2 dozen the other. It's like, do you want to save 110 points on an idiot character that you otherwise wouldn't take? Or do you want to have max tank busters? It's a trade-off. I've got 3 squads of 10 Snaggers, 2 squads of 5 Burners to accompany the tank busters, 5 Ludas as well to do screening and actions, 10 Flash Gets, 2 squads of 10 Gretchen. I've been playing more and more lately with, Gretchen were always the first thing that I would cut when I was looking for points, but I've really been trying to maximize the use of Gretchen, and I feel like the OC2 is really important right now for flipping points for low investment. So I've been trying to get 2 or 3 squads of Gretchen in every single one of my lists. 2 squads of 5 Storm Boys because they're fantastic at Tactical Brigade, and 3 squads of 6 Tank Busters and 5 trucks. My rule of thumb right now is basically you count up the number of units that want a car, and you either subtract 1 or 2 for the total number of cars that are going to be in your list. I think it's a little bit too conservative to run 1 car for every unit that wants one, and to really cut it down below -2 for the number of cars is greedy in my opinion. So if you have 6 units that want trucks, 4 if you really need a penny pinch, and then 5 is probably the ideal number. So yeah, this is where I am. Obviously, strengths of this list, the shooting is absolutely hellacial. Like if you're not playing against an armor save stacking army with high toughness, the flash gets kind of just mow through multiple units before finally going down, especially if you're running them with the Mega Mech. And then these are the best tank busters Orcs have access to. They're basically immune to smoke because they can be +2 to hit into vehicles and monsters. And they can also hit infantry very well because you can order them for +1 to hit. So they're basically just as good at killing things like Possessed and, random tough Space Marine bodies. If people are running like Death Watch Terminators, people are running a lot of Inceptors, that kind of thing. You can just hit them just as well as you would hit a vehicle, which is great. There was a lot of hype initially about stealth in this detachment. I think it's a little bit overhyped. It can kind of like, if you're going in for a go turn, giving your entire army stealth can help like you keep one unit operational, but these are ultimately a bunch of 1 and 2 wound orc bodies with terrible armor saves, and you have 1 turn of invul. So this detachment is very squishy. It's squishier than Bully Boys. It's squishier than Green Tide. It's like comparable to Warhorde in terms of squishiness. And you have some nice tools like fall back and shoot, reactive move when people fall back from you. But ultimately, one of the big problems you're going to face playing Tactical Brigade is you can't really score primary until you've literally turned the entire flank. Until you've cleared enemies out from, a quadrant of the board, you're not going to be holding the objective associated with that quadrant of the board. And I noticed that a lot in a lot of my tactical games. Was my primary was like 3, 3, 3, and then like 15, or it's like 3, 3, 8, and then you get a 15 or something like that. It's very hard to actually hold your expansion with this list, because what's the most durable thing here? Like a squad of 10 snaggers with -1 to hit it versus shooting? Yikes, dude. Anyone can take an objective from that unit. So, nonetheless, it's a cool list. It's a lot of fun. And if you like shooting people with orcs, this is a list like this will do you well.
What the hell is happening? Where are the Breaker Boys?
Okay. So there's been a lot of, I don't know how much of this there actually is, as opposed to just like Anthony dogging me with this opinion everywhere I go, it feels like. Oh my god, that was loud. But Breaker Boys are a good unit. They're not a fantastic auto-include 3 of them with a war boss in every single one of your lists unit. The big thing is they are more expensive than a Knobs unit with less defense, and the Knobs are already a very squishy unit. That basically has 1 role only, and it's very, very good at that role. But if it doesn't accomplish that at any given game because of just factors that occur on the board, like your opponent screening them out or them failing their charges, something like that, you're playing down 225 points. And it's exceptionally easy to kill. Like any unit in the game, 5 Space Marine scouts can like cripple a Breaker Boys unit by like throwing a grenade and mowing them down with +1 to wound. Like this is the glass cannon of all glass cannons, and I think the Orcs already have enough of this in as like a part of their faction identity. I don't think you need to lead into it anymore. Is taking some number of Breaker Boys bad? Absolutely not. Like they're still very good for what they do, and I think you can put like 1 or 2 units in, and if you want to increase their punching power, you could put a boss in them. When we look at my next orc list, I think it's the next slide. Actually, we could just transition to it right now because this connects in. I think really what you want to do with Breaker Boys is they're great with a war boss because it increases the reliability of accomplishing that task. But you also want to have a backup plan in case the person the opponent you're playing into doesn't have a good target for them, or they're not going to trade efficiently. So I like, especially in Bully Boys and Green Tide, where you're taking war bosses already, you can have them swap between a 10 boys unit and a Breaker Boys unit, depending on the matchup you're playing into. So let's say you're playing into something like Grey Knights. I really want my Breaker Boys unit to go in and kill a Dread Knight 100% of the time. So I'll attach the war boss to the Breakers unit. But into Genestealer cults, a Breakers unit with a war boss is just as credible a threat to like 80% of their stuff as just 6 Breakers. So instead, I'll attach the war boss to the 10 boys, and now I have 2 threatening units instead of like 1.5. So that's kind of the idea here, is you have the flexibility of attaching the war boss based on the matchup you're playing into. So the list I have here is Bully Boys, just to run down I know I've been talking for a while here, so I'll just run through it really quick. It's basically focusing again on shooting packages with tank busters and then mega knobs. So we got a Maw boss, 3 Sag mechs, got a war boss to swap between 10 boys and 6 breakers. We got 5 gits, 2 squads of 10 grots, 3 squads of 5 mega knobs, 3 squads of 6 tank busters, and those 5 trucks. So just lots of Bully Boys good stuff, and then some mega knob spam. taking it back to the summertime.
Yeah, I feel like Bully Boys has seen something of a resurgence lately, and I know the watch change is real good for them. But what else do you think is driving that? Like this was a faction that really fell off pretty hard, and their Mega Knobs haven't gotten any better. Why are they? And the AOC is bad now. Why are they popping up again?
So I think it's kind of like the longevity of the Mega Knob units. Right, like they might not hit that critical threshold of damage in one, or they don't hit that critical threshold of damage that a break a unit does in one fighting activation, but they also take much more to wipe out, and that's something that is really missing in Orcs right now. It's only like a couple units that really have true durability. It's like Green Tide 20-man boy squads and Bully Boys Mega Knobs are like really your only units that can genuinely take a punch and keep going. So really leaning into that a little bit and being able to control the objectives once you get there is kind of the point of this list, right? Like once 10 Mega Knobs, even without attached war bosses, arrive on an objective, it's going to take some real effort to unseat them. And that was kind of like the issue with tactical that I wanted to remedy by pivoting to bully here, is longevity on the objectives.
Very cool. And you feel fine running these Mega Knob units just like unadorned? This 2x5, they don't even have a character, right?
They don't. Yeah. I don't need them to go kill God. If I need to go kill God, I've got a mob boss squad for that. I've also got a 6 breaker squad for that. I need them to go and like kill moderately threatening units or kill enough of them that they're basically out of the game, and then just kind of sit there and demand real attention. Maybe they get back into a truck for a later game WA. I need them to be more flexible than just I go in, hit you super hard, and then instantly die. Orcs have plenty of that already. I don't need more of it.
Fair enough.
War boss is a mob boss now is 90 points, and 5 Mega Knobs is 170. So you're adding like 60% to the cost of the unit to give them like +1 to hit and a decent character. I'd rather just run more units, frankly.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm intrigued by the 5 flash kits here. I feel like most of the flash kits I see people taking none, or I see them taking a ton of them, 20 or at least a 10 brick. What's this little unit doing here?
There's a couple different little 5-man units that you can put in your trucks alongside tank busters. Really what I wanted to do here, and this is probably a remnant from an old variant where I had a mech in here to do like firing deck shenanigans, where you could really like load up one truck with firing deck, which is cool. But yeah, they're just kind of like a 5-man unit to go with the tank busters. I think in the tank buster truck, because that package is very expensive, you probably want to pare that down and go as cheap as possible. You could probably combine, let's see. Yeah, Big Gob is 20 points. Gits are 80 points. You could probably melt those two down into 2 squads of 5 looters just to increase the unit count a little bit. That's another option. But there's a lot of good 5-man units you could run kind of as the secondary unit in a truck for Orcs right now.
For sure. Very cool. Talk to me about deciding between these two different lists. Like if I'm an aspiring Orc player and I want to play one or the other, why am I taking one or the other? Is one of them better in teams or singles or terrain format or just play style?
I haven't quite figured that out yet. It's really what you. So until I haven't figured out, what I'll suggest is it's kind of what aspect of Orcs you like more. If you like the glass cannony aspect, playing something like tactical or warhorde is definitely the right move. But if you want a little bit more, like if you want to be able to brawl a little bit more and take a hit and keep going, if you don't want like a couple things going wrong with your plan to completely shatter your chances of winning a game, you're definitely susceptible to that if you're playing tactical or warhorde. Bully boys are a little bit more resilient, and that's why I personally like them quite a lot.
Gotcha. Very cool. Sweet. Ready to move on to our submission from Mr. Nicholas? Let's do it. Alrighty. Nick is bringing us the Big Bad Warp Bane Grey Knights. I know this is a bit of a pivot faction for you, Nick. Tell us about the list and tell us a little bit about your journey to get here.
Yeah, so we both, all 3 of us mentioned that Warp Bane is very, very strong. Its main gimmick, like why are we talking about this compared to like the old Grey Knights list, is that it can now do lots of damage. Mostly just it has captain rerolls army wide for the entire game. And as long as you're within your hollowed ground, which you activate your hollowed ground, like all of these other activate, ground detachments work, where you have to own, more than half or at least half or more of the midfield objectives at the start of a phase. And your DZ is always in your hollowed ground. And while you're within your hollowed ground, you get full hit rerolls, which is very, very strong. So this detachment or this list that I've been playing, it's not too far from stuff we've seen before. It's got the 3 Grandmaster Nemesis Dreads and 3 normal Nemesis Dreads, so 6 Dread Knights, with the Psy Cannons, Flamers, and Hammers. I've been experimenting with Gattlers on the Grandmasters, notably because they don't have access to Advance and Shoot. And when you have full hit rerolls, all of a sudden a gun that doesn't auto hit isn't as necessary. But I may end up going back to the Flamers just for simplicity. But it is kind of nice to have like 12 guaranteed shots with sustained, especially with all of these like little rat units running around we've been talking about. Obviously, 611 ignores cover is a little bit better than 601 not ignore cover. But sometimes you shoot your Flamer and you roll 3 shots and you're like, ooh, unfortunate. Whereas other times when you shoot your gun with sustained 1 and full hit rerolls, you're like, 14 hits. It's got the rest of it's also got a squad of 5 strikes. They're great because they sticky the backfield, and then the rest of the game they teleport around and stuff, or they screen. There's kind of a few different versions going around. This is the latest version I've been running. I've got 2x5 interceptors, which are the 12-inch move fly unit, which are very, very helpful for like going out and taking over the midfield on the turns that you need to turn on your hollowed ground. They're also really good at doing secondaries, and they're also really good at giving line of sight for the last unit in this list, which is the Purgation Squads. So I've been doing 2x5 for a bit, but I'm trying 3x5 now based off of some recommendation. These are guys that have ignore line of sight, provided that another psyker can see the target. And the really strong thing about these guys is they can just like hang out in your DZ for most of the game, where they have full hit rerolls all the time. So all of a sudden it's like, all right, you're hitting on 4s because of ignore LOS, but you're hitting on 4s with full hit rerolls at 8-0 or 8-1-2. They'll have cover because of ignore LOS, but 8-1-2 on your armor save, basically. Pretty good. And also, like, they can just uppy downy and shoot you with a bunch of shots at 8-1-2, not ignoring LOS, and just drop down and shoot you. So they're kind of like, I think, the secret sauce in this detachment. And yeah, so that's what I've been playing. How I came about to play this. So what I was saying earlier in the episode is we've got some events coming up, at least one at the end of this month, one at the end of next month, and the one at the end of next month is going to be super fun. It's going to be the first, I think, Portland Teams event, or like the first Portland Teams event to happen in a long time. First one I've ever been to. It's going to be 5-man teams, and I'm playing with Lucas and some of our other friends. And we kind of arrived at like, we need you to be playing some sort of like defensive list that can go out and potentially like flip matchups. So I've been wanting to experiment with GK for a while. We've kind of been orbiting around the idea of like someone in our group needs to know how to play them. And this new detachment was kind of what pushed me over the edge, because it went from being like good defensive army with tricks to like uppy downy absolute like super consistent high damage army.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick is the proverbial shoots gun player on every team in the Northwest, and this is definitely a shoots gun army to slam him on.
Why no purifiers, Mr. Nick? This seems like the detachment for them.
Yeah, so the thing I didn't really mention is purifiers. Pretty much every stratagem is built around purifiers, and we just say, nah, we don't need those. We're just here for the full hit rerolls. The thing about purifiers that is very strong is the area within 6 inches of them counts as hollowed ground. So there's some very cool stuff where like you can drop your dreads in, drop in some purifiers behind them. You still get your full hit rerolls without having to take over the midfield, which is like a bit of a problem, right? It can be hard to flip the midfield into some armies. Most of the time, though, the armies that it's hard to flip the midfield in are the ones holding you in your DZ, where you have your hollowed ground. So you're kind of cool just sitting in your DZ for like 2 turns, clearing him out, and then going and getting your points after that. I've been running 2x5 purifiers for a bit instead of one of the interceptor squads and one of the purgation squads. But just based off of people who are better than me that have been testing this out, they're like, try the purgations. It's like the extra bit of damage is what pushes it over the edge. So I've been trying it and liking it, and for like my role on our team being like defensive army that can like castle up and then shoot out when needed, I think it's a bit stronger. I don't think I quite need to be fighting over the midfield as much when I'm just able to at least one turn of the game guarantee take over the midfield with interceptors, and then like threaten you with 36 ignore LOS shots every turn.
Yeah, the interceptors and purgations as a combination are just absolutely disgusting. Like you cannot hide from the purgations. Like, okay, they need to see me. Like I can just hide. You cannot hide from an interceptor. Like they go so goddamn fast, and then they fire and fade to go even deeper. Like
they go 12. Like if there's something that they want to see that's like a little too far away, they go 12, slingshot off the thing they can see, go behind the wall, go hello, and then your purgation squads kill them. So yeah, obviously like 8-1-2 isn't amazing. They into like 2-up armor and stuff, but like anything that's like on a 3-up or 4-up save, you're just drowning them in weight of dice. And the great thing is too, is if we're playing on WTC boards, there's a very funny rule called plunging fire that I sometimes get access to because of the 3-story ruins on that. So these guys are shooting you at 8-2-2 sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. They're gross.
Why is that still a rule?
And the
well, it's because it was a new funny terrain rule that the GW terrain doesn't even let you access.
I know why, Nick, but why?
Because they forgot it existed, dude.
There we go.
It's only the second unit ever to abuse it. Yeah. Funny enough, it's the second ignore LOS unit too.
Crazy. The fact that they uppy downy only like everybody else makes them a really gross unit at abusing the indirect rules, where if I could have one guy just barely poke out and see you down the line, my entire unit is firing direct now. They don't take the indirect penalty. I hate this. I hate it.
That is
so
pretty
much.
funny. So like the sergeant comes out and sees you, and then the rest of the unit blasts you. I didn't know that was a
exactly.
thing.
Yeah,
wow.
the
model.
No, the anti-LOS penalty is if no models in my unit can see any models in your unit, then I can only hit on 4s. Right? Does the
But you still get cover from the guys behind the wall, right? Because like the model.
Well, not for it being indirect. Like if they can't see you, they'll give you cover regularly. But but you get to hit on 3s, 4-reels instead of 4s, which is incredibly annoying. What does the sergeant for this squad look like? Does he have a sword that can be sticking out or something?
I'm not even gonna entertain that. The sergeant has a melee weapon.
Yeah,
I hate
sure.
this line of thought you're going down.
I definitely recommend modeling him in a cool
I think
pose.
if I tell you I'm drawing line of sight from the tip of my sergeant's bayonet, you have the like right to shove that bayonet somewhere.
Yeah, and you're like very carefully checking all your screening to make sure they can't drop, and you're like, actually, I'm 1.5 inches further over than your screening would suggest because I don't measure to that.
Yeah.
Oh man. Jesus Christ! What a stupid
Ian
unit.
is gonna steal this list and try it out. Yeah, enjoy Ian.
This is a very Ian coded list. I think that he would do very well with it.
Would he lose his GM at DK turn 1 though?
Only if there's armatures on the board.
Bruh.
But I will say there are. We talked a lot about how strong this list is. It does put out a ton of firepower, and does drown people. It does have some like very specific weaknesses that old Granites did not have. That if you're worried about playing into this, like we should talk about how to exploit some of those. The number one thing for me is that nothing in this list flies other than the interceptors.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, the Dread Knights can't fly over each other.
Yeah. Exactly. They can't fly over each other. They can't fly over you, right? Yeah. We have gone from Granites being an unmoved blockable army to a very easily moved blocked army. If you, especially with a lot of these, the Grandmasters is not taking the Flamers anymore, so their Overwatch isn't quite as scary. You can stand in front of these things and control their angles a lot easier than you could before, if you can do that while also screening all the 9-inch deep strikes.
I mean, that might be just a me thing. I'm sure everyone else is running them with Flamers.
I've seen this in a number of places. Ruben's doing that. Anyway, it was relevant in the game that I was playing. Pizza Bagels in the chat points out that this army does struggle into -1 damage.
Yep.
That can definitely be a problem for their damage. They are not great at killing through 2-up saves, as Nick pointed out, because the purgations are pretty much useless in there, and the Nemesis Dreads cap out at AP2 on the Psy Cannons. Right, they have to go beat you with their hammers if they want to kill through 2-up saves and cover that efficiently.
They can cover.
Oh, yeah, they do
Psy
cover.
Yeah.
Sorry, 2-up AOC. But again, AOC is not what it used to be, and this is definitely
it doesn't love 2-up.
Army.
You taking mass 4-ups isn't great.
Totally. So
it also doesn't love pressure, because like unlike the Terminators that could like tank and hold the line, which obviously they can't hold the line as much anymore because of AOC change. But like nothing in this army can really stand somewhere for very long. At the end of the day, it is a bunch of like Marines with 2-up armor or T8 vehicles with 4-up bones, and 2-up armor. But like they're T8, you wound them on like 3s with all your anti-tank weapons.
Totally. And the lightness on the ground is suddenly actually something that really matters in a way that it didn't before for Grey Knights without mists or the sigil anymore. That like every single unit you can take away is massive value. If you're playing against this kind of army, like every single trash unit you take away hurts really, really bad. So first off, make sure when they throw units forward, because they have to, those units are all the way dead. Do not leave a straggler.
Especially their interceptors.
Yeah, especially interceptor, absolutely.
The interceptor is like the most important infantry unit in this list.
Absolutely. And then if they leave you an opportunity to go after someone, right? If there's an ingress setup that you can go after some strikes or something, like the Dread Knights are definitely the juicier target, and you'd like to go after them, and absolutely kill the Dread Knights. But like, you can make some of those infantry go away. This list gets a lot.
This list does have big screening issues. So like, if you can get around behind them and like take away what little primary they do have, that's very strong.
Totally.
I'm definitely privileged in this, like playing a ton of Orcs lately, but I've always had success ingressing against like elite drop shooting armies, especially if you can do it in a transfer. Like if you're playing CSM or if you're playing Orcs, like get super ballsy with your Rhino and just like put it in the line of sight and be like, you can shoot your 1 Dreadnought at my Rhino, dude. Do it, and then my 2 melee units are gonna go kill 2 things for the price of 1 CP. Totally worth it.
Yeah. And like there's other versions of this list, right? Like you probably won't see that many purgation squads out there in the wilderness. Like you might see a lot more purifiers. I've been seeing a lot of 20,
people
25,
love that
30
Crow
purifiers.
They will
people
not let it go.
Like the unit hits hard, like it gets +1 to hit when it's lost a guy, it gets +1 to wound when it's really low, I guess. It gets access to reroll wounds, which is pretty big, right? So like rerolling hits and wounds for CP is cool, but at the end of the day, it's a bunch of 6/2/2 attacks. It's just like 10 Marines with like no defensive buffs.
It's like 300 points of one-way ticket. Like that is not a thing
I don't love it.
Play in Grey Knights,
but you'll definitely still see at least 4 to 6 Dread Knights on like every one of these lists.
Yo,
they're insane.
Is that Gabe? Holy smokes!
No, that's Gabriel.
Yeah, we'll talk. We'll talk more. We talked about guard earlier, Gabe. Rewind. But yeah, very cool. And I agree. I don't think that this is exactly the list that we'll see in singles. I think that singles people are dedicated to playing well-rounded nonsense or whatever, and won't slam quite as hard. So your mileage may vary out in the world, but this list fucks. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
This list is scary.
Sweet. Alrighty. Let's head on over to the other glorious Imperial faction, which is my Imperial faction, because I'm an Imperium player now, and that is Halo's Creed AdMech. Oh man, this detachment is so much fun. I've been playing around with AdMech largely for coverage on the USA slide, but also to kind of expand my horizons and try out some other stuff. People have been telling me that this is an army that I would have a lot of fun with for a while, especially Anthony. Shout out Anthony. And they're right. This army is wildly fun to play. It is mountains of trash, mountains of nonsense, and just stacking buffs and layered abilities and 6,000 things to think about. If you are the kind of player who really likes to optimize and to consider their every possibility, if you're the kind of player who wants to sit on TTS and play a single-player Warhammer for like 12 hours as practice, this is the army you should play. Because man, oh man, are there a lot of different things you can do with it. And you can set up a lot of things that aren't really about what your opponent is doing so much as just different problems to try to present and solve. So we are playing the Gras Detachment. Is it better than Skitarii Hunter Cohort? I don't know. Maybe. It's different. It's way more fun. It's probably a little bit worse at blunting in a team setting, but it also is definitely better at pushing in a team setting, and has just a more exciting and useful set of tools to me. I would rather have reactive flat 6 than uppy downy personally, but your mileage may vary. So the list, we've got 2 marshals, a Scatros, a techno-archaeologist, 10 rangers, 2 squads of 10 vanguard, 2 dune riders, 3 squads of 5 Taraxi, 2 squads of 3 raiders, 5 infiltrators, 2 squads of 10 rust stalkers, 3 Scorpius disintegrators, a Calidus assassin, and Artemis. We got some agents, baby. Oh man, how do I even talk about this? So where does the damage come from? The damage comes from the disintegrators. The damage comes from the 2 squads of vanguard with the marshals. In the Dune Riders, they're getting in after the Rust Stalkers are flinging out. Some of the damage comes from the Rust Stalkers because they're very fast, and then there's a bunch of death by 1,000 cuts going on here with everything else, right? The damage image out of the infiltrators, the damage image out of the Taraxi, having access to grenades, bits and pieces all over the place. Yes, absolutely. Scatros is so good. I could not imagine playing without him right now. 10. The Scatros, for those of y'all who don't know all the AdMech words, that's the new stilts guy that everyone likes to make fun of because he looks kind of silly, and I agree, he does look kind of silly. Does he have a gun? I don't know. I've never fired it in my life. Supposedly he does. What does he actually have? 50-point price tag, the loan op keyword, and access to a reactive move. He's great. The reactive move strat is the reason that you're playing this detachment, and he is one of the best abusers of it. Lone Ops with flat 6 reactive is just spicy. They go places, especially when you also have the 2 squads of raiders that have reactive moves that can go up to flat 6 if your vanguard's in the right place. He has arguably 3 shots per game if you really try for it. I believe it. I think he also can take 2 different guns like a Kroot Lone Spear can. I don't even know which one he has. It doesn't matter. No, he's a great little piece of kit. Taraxi are broken. They're wildly broken. They're just a fantastic unit. They are gargoyles, but better in so many ways. They don't have the OC, right? This is a 5 OC unit, not a 20 OC unit. I know Siegs runs a 10-man Taraxi partially for that reason. Yeah, absolutely. You stick Halo Override on the Scatros all the time. Not literally every turn, but like very regularly. The Halo Override buffs are not that good, right? Like Advance and Charge and +2 move are the 2 that are good. I mean, the toughest, they all have utility, right? They're all small little buffs, which is why this armor is so much fun, is because you have all these little peppered buffs that are getting thrown around, and you're looking for weird and niche opportunities to take advantage of them. But very often it'll be like Advance and Charge on the Rust Stalkers and the Scatros, because nobody else needs to Advance and Charge right now, and I want that guy to flat 6 reactive this turn, so he's great for that. Rust Stalkers go. Sorry, I was talking about Taraxi. They're not as high OC, which is a bummer, but their shooting is really good into E3 bodies. So you're still like doing damage on like a gargoyle unit, and then the fire and fade going up to flat 12 when there's battle line nearby is just disgusting, right? I often have 2 units in deep strike, and then 1 will chill behind a ruin near my home field where the vanguard are, and just bounce out, drop 29 shots on something stupid, get back, right? Just free damage that chips and chips and chips. This army generally wants to live in Conqueror Doctrine, right? That's kind of the big difference in my mind between protecting Skitarii Hunter Cohort and Halo Screed. Hunter Cohort wants to live in Protector all game. Halo Screed wants to live in Conqueror. And in Conqueror, the Taraxi bump up to AP1, and they're actually able to do a little bit of damage if you want them to, and they have Assault, so they're really going places, right? If they can fire and fade aggressively forward, they can fire and fade defensively backwards, right? Really great. The reason that this detachment is good for anyone who's telling me that Halo Screed is better, that Cohort is better, is because you're using the reactive move stratagem instead of fire and fade to get value out of your vanguard, right? And all of the AdMech buffs key off of your battle line being on the table is really tricky to do if your unit's going to fire and fade all the time, right? It requires that A, you don't get to use them in the charge phase, the fight phase, so like Rust Stalkers aren't very good, and then B, You're also suddenly you don't, and then they have to be the last thing to shoot if everyone wants to benefit from the shooting phase. By moving the timing from your shooting phase to your opponent's movement phase when you're going to be getting back in the boat, it lets you benefit from it way longer. So the Taraxi, it can comfortably jump over toward them in the midfield, and then they can react and move back into the boat. And again, that reactive move being flat 6 means that your unit just has to end everyone touching within 9 of the boat, and they guaranteed get back in for the 1 CP if anyone comes close. Right, which not only means can you see lots of stuff, but it also means that you can force the reactive move really effectively, right? If you're going to go tag someone that needs to fall back, and they only move so many inches or whatever, you can be way strung out really far forward and say, hey, if you want to come anywhere near my army, I'm getting back in the boat. And if not, I'm holding primary. So do your worst. Super fun detachment, a lot of fun to play with. A couple of the other tech pieces here. Calidus is really good, shocker, but she's especially good in Halo Screed because you don't have the uppy downy on the Taraxi anymore, so you really want someone to go around and do that. And then Vect is just a really useful stratagem to have, as it turns out. Crazy. And then the more fun and exciting recent addition is Artemis. God, if you play Imperial armies and you have not considered taking solo Artemis, try him. He is so cheap. He's 65 points. Why is he 65 points? This guy should be 80. If you don't know what he does, he's a space marine. I don't know what to tell you. But he let me pull up his data sheet in front of me so I get this all.
He's got a sword.
He's got a sword.
5/22 sword.
He might be strength 6.
Oh.
No, he's strength 5. Yeah. So he's move 6, T4, 3 up save, 4 wounds, lead 6, OC1 with a 4 up invuln. So he's surprisingly durable sometimes. He has Hellfire Extremis as his shooting weapon. It's a 4/1/1 Dev anti-infantry 4-up flamer. What?
Okay, that's kind of funny.
Whoosh. So yeah, he just hands out like 1 or 2 Dev wounds to an infantry unit every turn with spike potential. Hilarious. Just a very funny thing that he does. And then in melee, he's got 6 attacks on 2s at 5/2/2. Admech really lacks damage to melee in general, and he's very nice for that. I'm an Admech player because my favorite thing about this guy is that he has the grenades keyword. Oh man. The only Admech datasheet that has grenades is Taraxi, so picking him up to add a little bit more grenades potential is really nice. So he's great for that. And then the actual reason you take him, he also has 6 up Feel No Pain, fun fact. So he's slightly more durable than that. The actual reason you take him is he gets back up on a 2-up. Admittedly, he only has 1 wound when he does this, so don't fail your Leadership 6 Battle Shock. But he just does so much nonsense, right? So again, this army is all about piles and piles of weird and unexpected tools that overlap in fun and interesting ways, right? So if you put a Skatros and Artemis right next to each other on an objective, you say, hey, you need to actually come in and stand here if you're so that you can punch Artemis out, or so that you can stand on the objective and take it from me. But if you do that, my Skatros now gets away and is standing somewhere else that you're not able to actually take him down because he's standing next to a wall or whatever. And the next turn I'm able to get back at you. Both of those things, as you need to come close to me, allow you to trigger the reactive move on the Vanguard more and more often, so their damage gets a lot better. The only thing that kills me about this army is that you can't Overwatch and reactive move at the same time. I don't think. I should double check the timings on those, but if they're like most of them, your opponent would get to pick the order you did those in, and they would make you move first. So it doesn't really work. But other than that, everything about this is a ton of fun. Raiders are great. They jail, but then they also have reactive moves, and they also just kind of run around and be annoying. They're OC6. I love OC6 units. Oh my gosh. The denial is fantastic. This army is a ton of fun to play. I've been yapping about Admech for a while, but I definitely recommend giving it a try if you're not sure what to do with Halo Screeder, want to dabble in a different faction.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, the game we played just a couple weeks ago of this was super fun. That was like one of your first with the new detachments, so it's super cool. Also, just love Rust Stalkers. Seeing 20 of those guys makes me happy.
Bro, they're wild. They do unsavory things to a 20-man boy squad, which is like a very specific thing, but also like, man, you want a unit that you want to wrap and tag. There's your wrap and tag unit. They go like 22 on average. Just absolutely absurd distances.
They're fast as fuck, boy.
Tons of fun. Cool. All right. Do you guys have any questions on this, or should I run into the other thing? I might actually come back to the other AdMech list because I've been yapping for a while.
Whatever you want to do, dude.
Cool. You know what? I'll just make it quick and mention what's going on this other AdMech list because it doesn't have nearly as much exciting stuff to talk about. All right. The other list I have here is what I'm calling AdMech, in scare quotes here, because agents are crazy and AdMech takes some of the best advantage of them. If you play AdMech for any extended period of time, you will probably find yourself desperately reading through the book trying to find where the ignores cover is, other than like omnispexes. Because Jesus Christ, I need to turn off cover. And you will not find it because we do not have that in the codex at all. I don't think in any detachment there is access to generic ignores cover. I hate it. I hate it so much. We need it so badly, it's part of why I really think that in general, if you're playing mono AdMech, Protector Doctrine is a scam because, man, do I need that extra pip of AP? Please actually kill things. It's on the onagers? What? No, it's not on the onagers. Dune crawlers do that? Abilities. No, they don't. War gear abilities. No. What are you talking about?
He's probably talking about one of the weapons.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, because you take the heavy phosphor blasters for AP1 ignores cover. Whatever. Anyway, sure, but not the point. No one strips cover is what I'm looking for. Yeah, just ignore cover. I see what you're saying. Anyway, but we have access to a friend. We have friends, and our friends come from the Sisters of Battle in the form of the Immolator. Because agents immolators strip cover for everyone, not just for agents, not just for sisters, just that unit that you hit can no longer receive the benefits of cover. So that opens up some really interesting gunline opportunities. So we're using kind of a similar shell here, but we're cramming in 735 points of allies, which admittedly we already had 165, which we then took out. But yeah, this is 735 points of allies in the form of 2 immolators, 10 sisters to split between them. Because immolators are still dedicated transports. Don't take immolators without sisters or they'll die. Don't do it. And then 3 Helverins.
It'll be really funny if you do that.
You will be. And this is an insane amount of firepower. 3 Disintegrators, 3 Helverins, 2 Immolators. Just shoots the crap out of people. I kept it to 1 brick. For those of y'all who aren't seeing the list, I'll read it off real quick. It's a single Marshal, a Scatros, a Techno-Archaeologist, 10 Rangers, 10 Vanguard, a Dune Rider, 3x5 Taraxi, 3 Raiders, 5 Infiltrators, 3 Disintegrators, 3 Helverins, 2 Immolators, and 10 Sisters. So yeah, the Halo Screed AdMech buffs do currently work on allies. The best use of that I found, honestly, so far is Sisters moving 8 inches out of a Rhino. It's real good. Yeah, this unit shoots the crap out of people. Helverins are gross when you give them ignores cover, because people really don't like AP1 ignores cover 3 damage. It's just a really good profile. And if you happen to run into Magnus, or you happen to run into Calladii, or you happen to run into Storm Speeders, or a Storm Raven, or anything else that flies, pew, 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 it's dead. Yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with this build as well. It's really solid if you want to just slam a bunch of holes on the table and obliterate people while still having enough AdMech nonsense to play around with. Give this a try. I think this is a really, really strong list. But it doesn't have quite as many of the fun tools. No Rust Stalkers, fewer pieces. But yeah, you might see me playing this in some events. It's a really, really strong build.
Not to harp on about the Helverins too much, but I do think that, honestly, I mean, having mega cheap OC8 low commitment units that still have firepower is pretty big for a lot of Imperium armies right now. Marines, I feel like could use some of these, even though they don't benefit from oaths. I mean, we saw Vanilla's basically Traitor Marines list running War Dogs to great effect, right? Just having a low commitment OC to throw in a place to get the fight started is big.
Yeah, absolutely. Helverins make a lot of sense in this particular build, but I think the Warglaives make a lot more sense in some other builds. And yeah, they are, OC8 is a hell of a drug. I'm with you on that. Sweet. Speaking of Chaos Knights, they're back, baby.
I'm lancing. All right, so this is the Iconoclast Fiefdom. Is the detachment any good? It's probably a little bit worse than the Index detachment. But is it cool as hell, and can you win games with it? Absolutely. This detachment was bemoaned because it doesn't have Knights of Shade. And yes, losing Knights of Shade is a big bummer. But 1 CP, advance and shoot, advance and charge, fall back and shoot, fall back and charge is a game changer for Chaos Knights. That was one of the biggest ways to shut down CK was tag them intelligently in combat to prevent them from doing what they want to do with their high movement characteristic. And is that stratagem as good as Knights of Shade? No, but it is pretty close. So with that in mind, we're trying to maximize the use of that stratagem. We're taking a Lancer. Our Lancer is going to let 3 cultist units scout. You can also take the 6 Feel and Pain Enhancement. That one's very good as well. We got 4 Brigands, 5 Carnivores, 20, 10 cultists, and 2 Firebrands. So the Firebrands are cool. They get joined to the 2 squads of 20 cultists and get scout from the Lancer. Basically, the Firebrand is a leadership 6 cultist leader. He has a Flamer. The Flamer does battle shock enemy infantry, non-vehicle monsters, when you shoot them, which has synergy now with the CK army rule. More importantly, he gives you a reroll to leadership tests for the cultists that he's joined to. So when your brigands when your brigands mostly are eating all the cultists to get lethal or sustained, you get a reroll there, so they die a little bit less apocalyptically fast. Because when you fail that, it gets bad. Yeah, so the core gameplay pattern here is like if you want to run a Lancer, you just kind of like lurch him out into the middle, into the best staging place. And then the turn after, you run out with advance and charge, and you say, deal with me this very turn, or I'm going to fall back and charge. And it's very fun, because while you're doing that, the 4 Brigands are lighting people up. So, yeah, it's a very fun detachment. I've had some success with it, and it is a ton of fun. Lethal hits on Brigands is a hell of a thing. And, yeah, it's just a great time.
Very cool. I gotta say, the Gras detachments knocked it out of the park with how the souping works in a lot of these armies. They are all just super fun and specific. How do you feel about Accursids in this? I feel like that's the thing that I'm not seeing here that I've seen on a lot of people's lists with the Chaos Knights in the new detachment.
So unfortunately, without Pacts, they aren't a credible damage unit. And the thing about without Dark Pacts. And then the problem with the Chaos Knight pacting is you kill models. You don't inflict mortal wounds. So you are just flat out killing the Torments. The Torments. You're not dealing mortals so that they don't get the block or anything. It just removes the model. So they die very, very fast, and they're not a credible melee unit. So we could instead use them to like gum up the opponent. If you could use the 2 CP revive a cultist unit on them, I would definitely be down for that. But unfortunately, it specifically excludes Accursed. So I just don't think they're worth it, unfortunately. I'd rather just buy more cultists.
Gotcha. Fair enough.
Yeah. So I think you in particular, I mean, this is not exactly like a big brain Tyler list, but the amount of movement shenanigans you can do with killing your own cultists is something that I think you would enjoy. I've already done multiple kind of maneuvers where, the cultists will be screening out an ingress in my backfield, and then that brick will supply my brigands with lethal hits for a shooting phase, and then you zap all the guys that are in your deployment zone, and then you're like, containment, actually. So that kind of thing is, it's very fun. Done that once or twice. It's good. It's a good time.
Yeah, I love that with screening with the final day GSC stuff. It's so much fun when, especially with screening ingresses. When does your eat happen? What's the timing?
It's just when you're doing the shooting activations.
You get in your shooting phase. That's wild. Yeah. The Nidswin being end of movement phase is a lot of fun for a couple reasons, but it is just barely late enough that I can ask for an ingress first. Like, you're going to ingress and then I'm going to eat my guys. So you can be like, all right, cool. I have screened out this area with my unit. Okay, you will ingress and then you'll come in and charge them and take the objective. Okay, never mind. That entire unit is deceased. Disregard.
Yep.
You no longer have a charge target. Like if it's 10 neophytes strung back and you just pop their coherency and kill all but one of them who's like 30 inches away from the ingress. Oh, beautiful thing. Yeah, this army looks like I said, there are a lot of armies right now where I'm like, man, I want to play that. It looks like fun, and this is definitely one of them.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Do you think that this detachment gives any play to any of the other night data sheets other than the ones that we've seen on repeat for the last. Nope. Okay.
Nope. Specifically, I think the Lancer is good because this detachment gives a lot of strength to brigands, and the Lancer being the tankiest big knight lets your brigands stay alive longer. Because with a advance and charge, fallback and charge, the Lancer is much more deliverable and continues to be a threat after you've committed her. So it's like you have to make at that point very hard choices between, do you want to shoot my brigands to death, or do you want to let my Lancer continue to run rampant through your backfield?
For sure. That's fair. It's a bummer. I feel like I heard people trying to talk about tyrants for a little while with this detachment, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think honestly.
Oh, is it? Was it because there's like an enhancement to let a Valiant Overwatch?
No, that's an Imperial Knights. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, that's an Imperial. Oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah, the boring one.
Yeah. Okay, sweet. Have you gotten this on the table yet?
Yeah, like 4 or 5 times.
Oh, wow.
It's very fun.
Yeah,
or maybe not that much. I think I've played 3 or 4 games with it.
Totally.
It's cool. It's good.
Sweet. Nice. All right, we're ready to move on to the second showing of Mr. Nicholas.
Let's do it.
Sweet. Tell us about them robots, Nick. We've been talking about them all day. What do we got?
Yeah, so Star Shatter, we've been playing with it a little bit. The thing about this attachment, I think that there's a lot of wiggle room right now. Obviously, it's an agreement. Like, Silent King is absolutely insane in the detachment because he's a vehicle. He gets all the good stuff, right? He gets the walk through walls. He gets the advance and shoot, right? He gets +1 to hit, +1 to wound. He hands out reroll ones to hit and wound, and/or ignore mods, and +1 battle shock. And he gets access to -1 damage off of an enhancement. Very strong. He also provides some much needed melee. So the initial list with Star Shatter, I think, were like really greedy because it was like Silent King, 3 DDAs, bunch of tanks, and then someone would walk some stuff at you and you'd go, oh god, I have no melee to dig myself out, yada yada. Something I looked at, because we got this, I think, before we got the points changes, maybe. Because it was kind of like they dropped the data slate somewhere in between Gras, like halfway through. So I was originally like, what about a Nightbringer that can get like +1 to hit and +1 to wound, right? +1 to wound sweeps with like rerolls, because like the King's rerolls work on him. Seems pretty hype as like an anti-counter charge. And then he like came out, and I think the data slate bumped him up like 20 points or something. And I'm like, all right, he's pretty expensive now. Like he was already an expensive piece. So this version of Star Shatter that I'm playing right now, it's kind of still experimental. Like you'll see at the bottom there for those watching, they say 180 points left over. There's still some wiggle room about like what exactly do you do with your leftover points. So I've got Silent King. I've got Emotech, because Emotech basically just gives you an extra CP every battle round at the start, like when you would gain CP, which is really good because the stratagems in this detachment are absolutely insane. And so like you really, really want to be getting extra CP for that. He's also quite tanky, good backfield holder. The other thing too is I'm running a Scorpic Lord with -1 damage. I think initially people were like, let's have Hex Marks carry the enhancements, but the enhancements are so strong. I was like, let's put it on a Scorpic Lord because like he's the tankiest like guy you can give something to, and you really don't want someone running in and killing one of these enhancements. The nice thing too is he can lead a squad of Scorpics, so when needed, like that unit can run in and help clear out something that's trying to like tag your tanks. The other thing I'm running in this list is I'm running a Technomancer. I gave him the fallback and shoot. And then I'm running him leading a squad of Wraiths. So a big thing that Star Shatter has an issue with is, yes, it does have like advanced and shoot. Yes, it does have auto advance 6, move through walls and all that. If you've ever seen a DDA, that thing is like ridiculously hard to move around. It's a giant hot dog. So the Wraiths are good because what they do is they provide this like real durable unit, kind of like how the Awakened Wraith brick work, actually the exact same. It puts a real unit on either your expansion or the midfield, and it tells your opponent, you need to expose something real to clear this, or else I'm getting primary. So they either need to expose some stuff to shoot it. If they don't kill it, right, Krons are famous for like, we're not gonna die, and like we'll live on like annoyingly one guy and then resurrect and still get it. So like they probably need to commit something to stand on the objective too, maybe something to melee and finish it off. But now what you've done is you've drawn out some real stuff, and you can then send your really fast guns, your DDAs, your Silent King out to just shoot that thing to death. I got a squad of 3 Scorpics for the Scorpic Lord to lead. I've got the 3 DDAs I've mentioned. I think that like every list auto-populates with those. They're just insane damage output for their points. And they're quite durable as well. Even only being T9, but 14 wounds with 4 Penvuln and access to the new transhuman. Pretty good. And then the trash is kind of like what all these extra points left over for. I'm a big fan of like 2 solo locusts. Like, we've been running that forever. You love them. I also really like a squad of 5 flayed ones. Just having an infiltrating unit's really good. You can infiltrate to block their scouts. You can infiltrate to block their infiltrators. You can infiltrate to like immediately take your expansion, or to like, set up for like area denial or Homer in the middle, or like, extend battle lines, etc., etc. I'm also running a squad of Ophidians. I like that they're not like as insane damage output as the Scorpics, because they don't have the full hit rerolls and they don't have the Lord. But in a pinch, they can run in and throw a decent amount of attacks at something, and they also are fast, and they have up down, which is a really good thing to have for scoring secondaries. After that, there's kind of like 180 points left over. I think the lists I played the other day had a big brick of 6 locusts as just like another unit that loves shooting stuff on objectives and has access to all of the things in here. I think you could run locust heavies. I think you could even run more trash if you wanted to. Like obviously, like Necrons have great trash, right? You've got Scarabs, you've got Tomb Blades. Got lots of good options. You could run like a Reanimator and a Spider if you want, but like I don't think this list is quite the like stand in one place vehicle castle as much. Like having the ability to like move out is nice. So I didn't really want to be like super anchored to that, because like sometimes you just have like a DDA and like your score, rates pushing like one area. So yeah, I think this is kind of like a good place to start. Obviously, the Locust Destroyer's down, kind of up for debate. Honestly, actually, I'd say Ophidian's down, up for debate. I'm a big fan of 2x1 Locusts, 1x5 flayed ones. But that extra, I guess, 260 points is kind of like dealer's choice.
How do you feel about? I think after the 3 DDAs, the first vehicle that I see popping up in almost every list is the Canoptek Stalker, the Triarch Stalker.
Yeah. I think he's really good.
Yeah,
I really wish
you have the Wraith unit here, which kind of feels like that same kind of initiation piece, something cheap and very durable to go stand on a point and get the fight started. Do you think you could find room in here for a Stalker, or does it not fit?
I mean, I think you could. I think he's less than 180 points. I think they're 125 or something. The great thing about the Stalkers,
I think they just got dropped too.
Yeah, the great thing about the Stalkers is they strip cover, which obviously like stripping cover in a shooting army is really good. However, it's like, how much do you really need to strip cover when your guys are like AP4 tanks, It's nice in a 2-up armor. I'll tell you that much. And the Stalker does scout 6. And like you said, yeah, it's a T10, 12 wound, 4-up invuln vehicle with access to all the aforementioned stuff. So it is weirdly durable sometimes. 110. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a fucking bargain. I'd say like, yeah, you could definitely buy a Stalker and like, 70 points of like some trash. And I think that'd be totally fine. So
yeah.
I think the other vehicle that then pops up after that is the Annihilation Barges. And
Yep.
I really did not like these in Hypercrypt. I saw a lot of people playing them. I did not like it. I really like them in this detachment. Those things have been incredibly annoying. So if you're looking for other things to do, there's those. I think in this list, though, my first question is if you've thought much about whether or not you should have Cryptothralls in that Wraith Brick. They seem like a pretty stable piece for people in Awakened or in Can Court with the one brick that was going to be better than the others, or in Awakened just the one brick that they took. What do you think about them in this unit?
I mean, it makes it harder for your opponent to like kill the brick, right? Because forget, you can kill the Crypto Thralls before you kill the Wraiths, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I thought. Like they're not like a weird character thing. Yeah. Which is quite good, and they can come back still too. Oh, they just don't give the unit the feel no pain or whatever it was. Is that what it was? I forget what their change was. They just went up a bunch of points, right?
Yeah.
I think once you kill the 2 cryptos, you can't res them, right? Is that how it works? How the hell does this unit work, boys?
You're the one suggesting. Yeah, can you bring them back even if both of them are dead?
I don't see why
is that
not.
a change? Okay.
The bodyguard unit starting strength is increased. So like they're not at starting strength if there are only 6 models in the unit.
Oh, didn't they also used to get a feel no pain somehow?
Yeah, they used to themselves have a
Yeah,
fort feel no
that
pain.
went away. Okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember like what went down with these. Yeah, so like I mean having 6 extra wounds on 2 bodies is nice. It's what, 60 points? 60
They
points for
are
this?
60, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how much you need that necessarily, because I think you're like totally okay with this Wraithbrick dying. Like obviously you're gonna do everything in your power to like make it as annoying as possible for your opponent to kill it.
Mhm.
But I feel like the difference between like 6 more wounds and not like isn't gonna draw anything else out. I don't know. There is
Mhm.
something to be said. I think someone's asked me the same question about running Crypto Thralls in like Court back when Court was really good. And I think there is
Yeah.
something to be said about throwing something in when your opponent expects like, okay, on math, like I usually wipe out a Wraithbrick with this combination of stuff. And you're all of a sudden like, what if there are 2 Crypto Thralls? And they're like, oh no, I can't figure that out quickly enough. I think like that's cool. But like as you see, we're already so like points tight, that like I feel like it might be better used as scoring. I mean, you could do like Stalker Crypto Thralls, and there you go. That's your last 180 points. So
That's
yeah.
190. Or no, oh, that's 170. Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, it could be that. I think I was with you earlier. I really like either a reanimator or a spider, and I think that if you're going with the wraiths, it's probably the reanimator.
Yeah. I like that the
just 'cause-
spider does give
yeah.
out the feel no pain against mortal wounds and psychic attacks, though.
It's great against Grey Knights.
Great against
Sure
Grey Knights and
is.
T-Suns and all these random
Man.
mortal wounds running around.
T-Suns aren't real, but yeah, Grey Knights for sure.
Dude, watch out, dude. Hexbane
Interesting.
Thralls might come for you, dude.
I played a game against new Grey Knights. They are, or not new Grey Knights, or new T-Suns. They are
They're worse
not
than
it.
T-Suns.
Yeah.
Play that much. Yeah, it turns out Magnus is still really good. Still really important.
Oh, I didn't talk about the Warrior Tyranid detachment. That detachment's a ton of fun. If you don't like playing forces, play that. Super fun. Play Zone Throats.
Yeah,
There's
the
some good-
Reanimator might be better with the raids. It's just a little
Yeah.
awkward to maneuver it around, but
For sure. I think it's just like a really compelling threat to be like, not only can I like resurrect and get on this objective, but I can very reliably get 2 rates back for 4 OC, as opposed to you being able to just throw absolutely anything in there.
Yeah.
You can't just go drive a rhino up there and be like, well, worst case, it's 2-2. Yeah,
start
cool.
Shatter.
Sweet. Looking forward to seeing how it goes for you. I think we were all very much rooting for this attachment to fail initially because it seemed like it was so nonsense, but I think it's in a really reasonable spot here. And I worry that if GW responds to the knee jerks and in 3 months we see this army go, like if DDAs go up like 15 or 20 points, like I think this army just ceases to work. So hopefully it gets kind of left alone because I think it's very reasonable right now, but
Yeah.
we'll
It's
see how
alright,
it
dude.
goes.
Necrons can go back to sleep for a little bit. It's fine.
Yeah, no, it was very good timing of me to be done with robots as they sail off into the night. Glad to be playing something else. Cool.
Literally just different robot, by the way.
Yeah, I do like robots. That's correct. I just prefer them to be religious zealots instead of zombies.
Yeah, the true AdMech classic, which is play Necron, you use Necron technology for a bit, and then go like, all right, now we're gonna return to ours.
Exactly. The AdMech really are the British Museum of the 40K universe. Alrighty.
Glad you guys couldn't steal our up-down technology, dude.
I mean, the cohort did. They just didn't give it to the Halo. But yeah, man, AdMech with uppy downy detachment. When?
Yeah, that's what it was.
No, I see what you meant. All right,
dude,
cool.
also, small like little aside there about the up down, dude. The day that Warpaint came out, I'm like, damn, this is a bummer that they're gonna lose their up down for this though. And that's when I looked up GK and realized the up down was the army rule and not the fucking shitty advance and whatever it was thing. Which I mean that is really good for Dread Knights. But yeah, I was like, wow, okay, crazy army rule. Here we go. That's going to define every detachment coming out after this.
Yep, that's just kind of the reality of it.
Yippee!
At least they lose their fly and the auto advance 6. Those were
Yeah, the auto 6
very
Dread Knights with fly were really good. That is like you're saying, that is like a noticeable loss. When I rolled 1 on my 3 Dread Knight advances in one turn, I like wanted to punch myself.
Yeah. Oh man.
Break this Dread Knight in half. Yeah. That said, also, yeah, definitely if you're gonna play that detachment, don't start all your Dread Knights on the board. You want to have like some rapid ingress threat with the Grandmasters. And your normal Dread Knights are not as fast as you think they are.
Totally. Yeah, they've gone from like the most consistent data sheet to like one of the least, because the difference between going 9 and 14 is just wild on a unit that does everything. We saw in that game that Ruben was playing into Poland, where the Dread Knight hits a 6 in its advance, blitzes out further than expected, is able to cut an awkward angle, shoots the hell out of something, and then hits like a 10-inch charge into, I think it was a squad of breachers, and just bonk. Oh my gosh. Very annoying to still have to play around that threat range, even if it's not automatic anymore. Anyway, let's start. Oh my gosh, this is not going to work. Let's start looking at some listener questions. So we are 2 hours in. I know you guys like to go to bed at some point. If you've been joining us so far, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate you being here. There are 45 of y'all live right now. Hell yeah. Great. If you're listening to this in the future on the podcast feed or on YouTube, you know that we go live here at vaguely regular times. Sometimes, I don't know what happens. In theory, we like it to be around the weekends, but it just kind of is what it is. If you're in the area, drop by. But if you're not, totally catch the VODs or the YouTube streams where you want to listen to my stupid computer fans. Anyway, if you want to keep the conversation going, though, past that, if you're not able to join live, definitely head on over to patreon.com/statcheck to join our Discord server, where you can have the conversation going all the time. And if you want to learn how to play any of the armies that we've talked about today, and you want some more personalized advice, some more one-on-one, and some specific practice, you can head over to stat-check.com/coaching, where all 3 of us, as well as a bunch of other wonderful Stat Check hosts, do offer premium coaching services that can really help you kickstart your career. Maybe you want to do it for a little while. Maybe you want to do it all the time. Whatever it is, we spend way too much time on this hobby, and not everyone else can. So, benefit from our experience and turn some of your time into money, into experience a little bit more efficiently than spending the time yourself sometimes. Anyway, we've got some other wonderful sponsors down in the description, such as Wayland Yutani, Red Dragon Games, J15 Gaming, and who's the fourth? There's 4. The other at C1, Saltire Games. Love them. They make great products. Just couldn't remember the name of the store. We've got some discount codes as well. Check out the description for all of that. Now, if you want to ask listener questions, we do have a thread that goes up in the Discord every time we have an episode coming up, where you can post them. They will guaranteed be answered. Super chats are also always answered. And then if you throw your stuff in the YouTubes, maybe we'll get to it, maybe we won't. So starting off from the Discord here, that one guy, John, asks, please explain to me how I should build my final day GSC list. Did that earlier. Hope you enjoyed it. If you got any further questions about that, John, feel free to drop them in GSC chat. We'll talk about that list. It's a lot of fun. Sin Eater, it's a hell of a name, also known as Jeff, asks the question on everyone's mind right now. What do you expect the meta to look like for the Las Vegas Open?
I think people will be playing Necrons and Space Marines. I do not know if the average player will be able to... Well, I don't know if the average player has a Silent King and 3 DDA sitting around, but I do think that is easier to get your hands on than 40-plus Scions. Like, I get that people are already, like, taking a million Aquilons, but, like, you also need Scions with all of the special weapons and command squads. Like, getting those models is not going to be something that most people are going to be able to do in, a month to a month and a half. So I expect a lot of Marines and a lot of Necrons.
Yeah, I think so. I have not been following LVO. They're doing all fixed terrain this year, right?
They are.
Is it the same FLG layouts for their FLG tables as it was at Champs Cup, or have they changed them?
So no, it's different. The big thing is that there's no more of like the pieces up against the side type of stuff.
Oh.
And they've done a lot more like pieces conjoined. There already was a fair amount of conjoined pieces, but there's a lot of the medium and smaller pieces like come together to form an L
Okay.
or a longer
Cool.
piece.
Sure.
And then there's like for each deployment type, there's also a GW layout that's in effect that you could be playing on, and a WTC ruin sector, whatever the hell they call their version of WTC that you could play on. And my understanding is it's kind of a crapshoot of which one of those three you could play on any given round.
All right. Well, I love to see them introducing WTC tables into a singles format. You're more likely to run into them, be used to the expectations and the ideas around them. That's awesome.
Yes.
Big ups to FLG for that. I have no comments on the FLG tables, as I have not seen them, but also love to see them doing fixed stuff. Props to FLG for those things. But yeah, I think that in general, in a singles meta where I would just like sort of assume GW terrain, I think Star Shatter makes a lot of sense. I think Granites make a lot of sense, like you said. I also think that a lot of people are going to be running 30 Possessed, whether that's in Bile or in Raiders. That list has been doing the rounds in Europe for long enough that I think a lot of people know about it by now. And it is a lot of fun and kind of easy to do 4-2-5-1 with. And I think that there's always a lot of Chaos Space Marine players at FLG events because they're real popular in SoCal and Vegas and whatnot. So I would not be surprised to see a bunch of that as well. Yeah, very cool. Nick, you have any other thoughts? What's going to happen at LVO?
I think we got it. I mean, like kind of what we said was the most popular armies are going to probably be the most popular. You'll probably see some maybe like guard tank stuff. Guard aren't super popular, but yeah, I expect a lot of Marines, decent amount of Necrons. I don't know who would win.
I don't know who's going.
I think there'll probably also be a lot of Custodes Dreads actually too. That's a very like people have those models from before instead of
Yeah, because like the Ven Dreads, like people have Contemptor Dreadnoughts. They don't need to be.
Yeah.
Particular things, Telemons, whatever else. Yeah.
My last.
All right. Sweet. Up next, Sam Lemon asks, "How's life in Spain treating you, Tyler?" There we go. What have been some of the biggest differences and challenges faced? Spain is really cool. It's a great time. Living in a small town has ups and downs of it. I've been spending more time out in some of the bigger cities recently, trying to get my my tourist life on a little bit more. I just got back from a week in Madrid. It's really cool out here. Some of the biggest differences and challenges faced. Big challenge, I didn't bring any hobby stuff, which I stand by. I think that was the correct decision. I think that the logistics of that would have been a nightmare, but I really am itching to get some hobby on. Definitely something I'm looking forward to once I get back. Some of the biggest differences is out here are that this entire country closes for 2.5 hours every day, so everyone can take a nap. That sounds like a joke, but it's actually true. Every business is closed from like 3:30 to 5:30 every single day.
Mediterranean
so that everyone can
moment.
go take their nap. What are we doing? It doesn't help that my job gets out at like 2:30 on most days. And it's like, oh, I'd like to, I'm off work. I'd like to go to the bank. Sorry, it's siesta. You need to either find somewhere to sit for 2 hours or go home first. And I not only do I live in a small town, but I live on the outskirts of a small town because I live on the beach. So it's like a 10 to 15 minute bike ride back into town. So it's like, oh man, do I really want to bike 15 minutes to then lay at home for an hour and a half to then bike 15 minutes just to do something? I need to go to the hardware store. I need a light bulb. Like, come on, please. No. Anyway, so that's interesting. That's been a big change. And then something really interesting in Europe, they really don't look like you working in a lot of cafes out here. Like there are a lot of cafes that ban laptops because they really don't want you to be there for several hours. There are plenty that don't, and I found lots of great places to work and whatnot, but like I kind of caught me off guard, a little bit of culture shock there. There's some of the biggest differences. Anyway, Spain's a good time though. I definitely recommend visiting if you have a chance. It's not talked about enough as a place in Europe. Madrid was fantastic. Highly recommend that city. Oh, also public transit's a scam outside of Madrid. In Madrid, it's great, but in most of Spain, the public transit is not that good. It's radically overhyped. You do need a car. Okay. Next question comes from Tim, the weird boy. He's got a pair of them here. What is the most overhyped army right now and the most underestimated? That's a great question.
Ooh, man, that is a good question.
We've been talking about Shatter being overhyped, and I think that's a reasonable answer here. But I wonder if there's something else that we could bring up other than that.
That was kind of my guess. But I
Yeah,
like
it's a
you
good
said, we've been
answer.
saying that all episode, right?
Yeah, exactly. It seems like Lucas thinks it's Tactical Brigade because I see people saying the house is on fire with them, and you don't seem quite as sold. I know you think Breaker Boy is the most overhyped unit.
I certainly think that's true.
Um,
I don't think it's the most overhyped army.
okay.
Man, this is a tough question.
Yeah, right. It's also kind of weird because we're in some pretty specific circles. I don't see the general populace's thoughts on everything quite as much.
Yeah.
It might be Tzeentch Demons or I think Slaanesh Demons. Either of
The
those
most slept
could
on or
also
most
be
hyped
the
up?
overhyped. I think that Tzeentch
See,
is
I was gonna say Tzeentch is kind of slept on, but maybe it's the circles.
I don't think it's that good. I think the detachment reads insane, and when I read the detachment, I was like, "This is the craziest thing I've ever seen." And then I went ahead and like read some of the data sheets, and I was like, "Oh, kind of needs to be."
The data sheets suck ass.
Yeah, if we get a Demon's book with a bunch of updated stuff, and that detachment sticks around as printed, that could be a crazy detachment. But as it stands right now, I just don't think that Tzeentch has the juice.
Fair enough.
So I liked you saying Slaanesh. That could definitely be one that I think kind of can just.
I know someone was saying earlier they're at like a 68% win rate, and I think that people just need to learn how to play against them. That army has problems.
Yeah, maybe.
We'll see. What about underestimated? I think that's a more fun question. What are people not as excited about as they should be?
Maybe not well, we said Khorne a little bit. I don't know if Khorne's underestimated. I just think it's kind of off people's radars.
Yeah, I think Nurgle is a reasonable pick for that. I don't think anyone's talking about them. I think they're really solid. Auxiliary Cadre is getting thrown around a little bit in the chat, both from John. How's it going, John? And also for Rusty.
That's a good
one. That's a really good answer. I think that attachment is very strong. There's what about the Assassin's Detachment?
Oh my god,
No.
Get out of here, dude.
No, that's pretty terrible.
People seem to think Deathwatch is pretty good. I feel like there's some of the talk around it has disappeared since like Ultras are so strong, but Deathwatch has like a very strong set of rules.
They do, yeah. Especially it's one of those armies that I feel like most folks just don't get to play into. So if you're an expert, you can really kind of get a lot of leverage out of that. Similarly, I was gonna say like, well, no, never mind. What do you guys think about the new Death Guard detachment? Because like I don't see people.
That might be underestimated.
You don't think about it? I mean, I
don't think about it. Reaper's Wager? I don't know if Reaper's Wager is underestimated. I think it's strong. I think the unfortunate part's a little too inconsistent. But, you know, may prove me wrong.
So yeah, we'll see how that shakes out. Great question. Jedberg says Bill's Creations. I don't know which of these he's saying that for, because in my mind, Bile is very hyped up and for good reason. But maybe there is not enough hype going around, or he thinks that Anthony's full of it, and maybe they're not actually that good. Either way, interesting take. All right, next question. Moving onwards. I think this is also still part of that same series from, was it Tim? It was from...
Yeah, Tim.
Yeah, so from Tim the Weird Boy. Do you have any advice for efficient testing and making list decisions in a brand new meta? This is a great question. As we've only got so many, like, I'm not short of time, but I'm playing so many armies right now that I struggle because in addition to the 3 that I talked about today, I'm also still playing Vanguard Nids. Like, it's really hard to allocate the games that we do have. But how do we test efficiently?
So something that I'm not always the greatest, a rule of thumb that I'm not always the greatest about following, but I always try to keep it in mind, is like pretend you're like isolating variables, right? If you hop from a list to another one, and you play against a different opponent, and you're on a different board, and you're playing in a different, like the mission's different, and you change 4 things about your list in addition to the detachment. Like there's so many things that are changing that it's going to be hard to isolate like what felt good and what felt bad about the changes. Whereas if you try your best to focus in on switching as few things as possible, then you can really focus in on like, okay, this change felt good, this change didn't feel good. Otherwise you kind of just get a bunch of white noise about maybe the mission. You associate a positive outcome with like something that actually was because of the mission or the opponent's list you happen to play against, something like that. Just try to like isolate the actual changes you're making to your list when you're considering new things, testing new things. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think at a certain point you have to lean on other people to try out some other data sheets and whatnot. If there's like a wide girth of things you want to try, but all right, cool. You thought this was great. Cool. I'll check that out. I'm going to check out these 2 things because you do not have time to play every variation. And like Lucas said, if you change everything at once, it's going to be really tricky. So having other people and sources of data that you can at least somewhat rely on is, oh, that's worth checking out. Oh, don't bother. Like, you got to make concessions at a certain point. This is a game of knowledge.
Yep.
As far as making list decisions in a brand new meta is concerned, or sorry, Nick, do you have anything to say to that?
I mean, sounds like you got something, so you can go ahead first.
No, as I can do anything to add to the first part.
For efficient testing,
Yeah.
I mean a bit. Like I don't want to go too much into it right now because considering how much we've got.
Yeah, for sure.
But...
Okay, list decision. Oh. Yes or no?
No, keep going.
No, okay, great. List decisions in a brand new meta can definitely be pretty tricky. I would focus more on what your army is and doing the fundamentally good things when you're trying to use a new detachment and whatnot. Figure out what the meta's like, make some meta tech choices later, but figure out how does this army want to operate on its own merits, and then deal with everything else, right? If it turns out that the entire meta is Custodians, Dreadnoughts, and Star Shatter tanks, cool, we'll tech for that later. Start by figuring out how to build an army that operates on good fundamentals. That's just more important.
Yep. Yeah, try to play to your army's strengths rather than shoring up everything that might be deficient. Because if you do that, then you're just going to end up playing a bad version of everyone else's army.
Yeah, and like this advice might not also be for everyone because like sometimes it's hard to find people. But it's like find someone excited about it. Find someone excited about a new army, you know, because they're going to be doing a lot of the like testing with it and that sort of thing, and like you don't really have to devote brain power to like what does this list look like, what does this list look like, what does this list look like, and that way you can like keep just playing into people who are excited about the different armies. Like I think we got a list of people on our team who are like, okay, you're gonna like try that out, you're gonna try that, you're gonna try that out, and then like we know who to like play with and that sort of thing in order to practice. So, which obviously might be hard depending on like your local scene, but if you find someone who's like really excited about Custodians Dreads and you're worried about that, just like go test into that guy, and then you can improve based off that.
Very cool. Alrighty, I'm with it. Pius then asks, what is your guys' advice on balancing Warhammer time with your partner, kids, work, and other hobbies? What is your process to set goals like? I think that's 2 separate questions. Well, it helps that none of us are really at a stage of life where those things are a little bit too much. I would check in more with the X and 1 guys about handling and splitting Warhammer time with your kids. But in general, I think it's important that you build out your schedule. Say this is time that I will spend doing my hobby, as opposed to just trying to let it fill in the gaps and whatnot. It's very easy if you've spent like an hour or 30 minutes in like 7 or 8 different increments of just sort of, oh, I'm on Discord and I'm looking at stuff, and then I'm looking at a list over here, and then I'm painting a little bit, and you can feel it like you're kind of on a treading water as opposed to scheduling off. Okay, this evening I want to spend doing this stuff, and feel like you're making progress in your hobby, whether that's on a painting project or if it's on a game or a list you want to work on or whatnot. Try to be intentional about the way that you're spending your time, so that you don't feel bad about spending a bunch of time away from other things that are also priorities for you, because as you accounted for it well in advance. Those are some thoughts. You guys have anything more to add? No. Great. Cool. For Lucas, how do you rate Warhorde versus Tactics for singles?
I would play Warhorde. I think it's better. You definitely sacrifice some shooting and some flexibility, but you get just like massive power. And like the MSU in Tactical is not nearly as good as it is in Warhorde, and I feel like that's Orc strength. Like the quantity of cheap, reasonably effective units you can bring in Orcs is kind of just like through the roof. I'd rather lean into a detachment that rewards that. I tried the big units in Tactical and it did not feel very good. For
sure. What a wild change of pace for Lucas, and his thoughts on Snorhorde. I know you used to absolutely hate that detachment.
I mean, I still do. It was the best one before. I just hated admitting it, and now it's definitely the best one, and I just don't want to play it.
Fair enough. All right, last thing here. I know Pius is a patron, and they've asked like 3 times for this over the course of the show. Lucas, what do you think on the new World Leaders detachment? I know you've been playing.
Oh, I think it's really cool. I think it's very, very cool. I do think it is worse than the index detachment, unfortunately, especially for singles play. I think for teams there might actually be something there. You don't want to play in the traditional very swingy world leader sense where you're hunting for an amazing matchup that you can go smash because your army's very good at that. But it's much more defensive, right between getting the increased reliability of the blood dice plus -1 to win, which is genuinely an incredible stratagem on 6 Exalted 8 bound. And Blood Surge, re-rolling if you're a vessel, also an incredible stratagem on 6 Exalted 8 bound. Like the combination of those 3 things mean that getting what you need out of your hammer units is fantastic. And if you need to flex smaller things into doing a lot with your blood dice, I also love that you can select a Vessels unit when it's inside of a Rhino, right? So if you need to have a Khorne Berserker unit go be a problem solver, you can have it be sustained +2 move, advance, and charge, and you can launch it all the way out and go have it do its thing. Unfortunately, without the extra attack and without the big one is the 2 CP -1 damage, all of a sudden you've gone from being incredible, one of the most combat dominant armies in the game in combat mirrors to kind of get beat up by Orcs and Space Wolves and Dark Angels even more than you already did. You're better into shooting armies, but you're much worse into the field, which is why I don't rate this detachment for singles very highly. But there's definitely stuff worth experimenting with in here. Just probably not Terminators. No auto advance 6 stat noises.
All right. Well, we've been going at this for 2 hours 25. I think that's a very reasonable run time for a podcast about nothing. Thanks to all for joining in. If you want to keep the conversation going, once again, that Patreon link should be in the description. If it's not yet, it will be in a minute. And then head over to the Discord or head over to stat-check.com/coaching to get a little bit more one-on-one insight. Make sure you check out the rest of the shows on the network and some of our wonderful sponsors in the description below. We do have some very exciting content in the works. There should be some more stat reps coming out based on TTS now. Lucas and I will be filming that coming up in a bit. So look forward to that. And of course, Innes has been putting out more and more content in pre-recorded form as well. Those have been really great. Check out some of his stuff on that as well. Anyway. With all, unless do you guys have anything else you want to say before we sign off?
I think we're good.
The Orcs is the best.
I thought you said they weren't even top 5, but okay. With that all being said and done.
Lick my balls, dude.
Oh man, where's the button I gotta push? I gotta push.
He's the best.
this button. There we go. With that all being said and done, thanks. Next time for a little bit more take all comers. Take it easy, everyone.